Welcome back to Modern Day Debates. My name is Mike. I'm your host. Happy to be here. So tonight's going to be, is there overwhelming evidence that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk?
Welcome. My name's Ryan Mullally. I'm an attorney. I've litigated at every level of the U.S. legal system up to and including the U.S. Supreme Court. And I've been covering the Charlie Kirk issue, the preliminary hearing into whether Tyler Robinson can be bound over for trial. I was a fact checker at the Andrew Wilson versus Candace Owens debate. And I'm here tonight to argue that there is overwhelming evidence that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. And there is. Now, let's be clear. There still needs to be a trial. No one here thinks that Tyler Robinson has already been convicted or that his right to a trial should in any way be infringed. No one's making that claim. What we're here to talk about is the evidence presented so far, which is overwhelming. Now, overwhelming is a subjective term. What overwhelms me might not overwhelm DD and might overwhelm you. That's fine. We don't need to get hung up on the definition. Just listen to the evidence, judge for yourself, and I think you'll have reached the same conclusion that I do, that it's overwhelming. And the reason I find it overwhelming is that it's not just one thing. The evidence against Tyler Robinson is a collection in which each piece corroborates the other pieces, making the whole stronger than any individual part. So what do I mean by that? I mean that the case against Tyler Robinson isn't one that's just built on one eyewitness or built on one piece of DNA or one piece of video or one alleged confession. This is a case where surveillance, physical evidence, forensic evidence, digital evidence, and Tyler Robinson's own confessions, along with other evidence, all converge on the same conclusion, that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. Now, let me walk you through that convergence. So let's start with the surveillance video. We begin on the campus of Utah Valley University. Tyler is there, even though he doesn't attend this university, and it's an over 3-hour drive from his home. He's on the surveillance footage. His car is on the footage. The investigators testified that they identified a plate that places his car on the campus. Then they identified Tyler himself on campus. This is the morning of the day that Charlie Kirk was shot. He's on campus wearing a red shirt and shorts. He's ID'd from the footage by multiple witnesses and his own statements. Next, Tyler goes to the TPUSA area and he speaks to a TPUSA representative while they're setting up Charlie's tent. Then he leaves. Now he comes back to campus. He's wearing a blue backpack. He walks around more. He leaves. He goes to a wooded area. Now, this wooded area, FYI, is where the rifle was eventually found. He comes back, no backpack, but he's changed his clothes. He's wearing a black hoodie and jeans. Now on the surveillance footage, he's walking with a stiff right leg, and it seems like he has some kind of large object jammed down the pants legs. Surveillance footage follows this black hoodied individual with a stiff right leg across campus. This person goes up the stairs of the Losi Center, which is the place where the shot that killed Charlie Kirk was fired. Surveillance footage shows this person goes up with an external staircase. They cross the rooftop, get to the southwest corner and wait. He crouches. After waiting, he crawls with some long object in his hand. He gets into a prone position, a position with a direct line of sight toward where Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. He remains there for 40 seconds or so. And then at approximately 12:23, the shot occurs. Immediately afterwards, this same person gets up, goes to the northeast corner, does a controlled 12-foot fall off of the roof, lands, runs to the wooded area where the rifle was eventually found. This is not just a person who happened to be on campus. This is direct evidence tracing Tyler Robinson's movements across campus to the place where it is believed that the shot was fired. And officers testified that there was a rifle shot coming from this area. This all happened at the preliminary hearing. So he runs to the woods. This is where the rifle's found. What did the officers find in that woods? Well, they found a Mauser 98 rebarreled. It's a 30-06 rifle wrapped in a towel. It's not miles away. It's in the same wooded area that we saw Tyler Robinson scope out twice. Inside that rifle is a 30-06 cartridge case that had been fired. A 30-06 is a 30 caliber bullet. The medical examiner's report indicated that that is the same type of bullet, 30 caliber, that killed Charlie Kirk. Now, On the cartridge was carved "Notices bulge ooh woo." This is important because earlier Tyler Robinson had borrowed from his lover slash roommate Lance Twiggs a Dremel to carve bullets. And in his text messages in which he confessed to Lance Twiggs, he referenced this exact phrase that he had carved onto this rifle, that cartridge. And there were other cartridges as well. But there's more. The towel that the rifle was covered in has Tyler Robinson's DNA on it. The rifle that was found has Tyler Robinson's DNA on it. The screwdriver that was found up by the sniper perch has Tyler Robinson's DNA on it. So we have corroboration from the video. We have corroboration from witness testimony. We have corroboration from the weapon, which is Tyler Robinson's granddaddy's rifle found in the woods with his DNA on it, with carvings that he made. When they raided his house, they found a test carving with the word test carved with the exact same Dremel in his house, completely consistent with the 30-06 that were carved in the woods. Now, the 30-06 was a soft point. The 30-06 soft point is completely consistent with the medical examiner's finding that the bullet fragmented inside of Charlie Kirk's body. But there's more. We're still not done. Some of the most powerful evidence is Tyler Robinson's own words. He texted his lover, Lance Twiggs. And at one point, Twiggs asked him, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" And the response from Robinson, "I am. I'm sorry." Not only that, he said why he did it. Of Charlie Kirk, he said, "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out." He discusses the rifle that he left in the wood. He discusses the carving on the bullet that he put. He discusses his attempt to go back to campus to retrieve the rifle. Well, guess what? In the morning of September 11th, the day after the shooting, there's video surveillance of his car returning, just as described in the text message, to campus to retrieve the rifle per his own text message. That the confessions not only are confessions, they corroborate the physical evidence. And then he left a goodbye note. He left a goodbye note for his lover. And what did he say in the goodbye note that Lance Twiggs found under his keyboard? Quote, "I'm likely dead or facing a lengthy prison sentence. I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I took it." Well, what could he have meant by that? It's a mystery. What could he have possibly meant by the phrase, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I took it"? But there's still more. The next day, he went and he spoke to Lance Twiggs, and he confessed in person to Lance Twiggs. Lance Twiggs testified to this during the preliminary hearing. And according to Lance Twiggs's recorded statement, Tyler Robinson expressed regret. He was sorry about what he had done. He was broken up. This, of course, is completely consistent with the way that the police in the information and charging documents indicated that Tyler Robinson had confessed or implied that he had done the killing when speaking to his parents, and then mentioned that he might end his own life because of the sense of guilt. But this is still not all. In his Discord messages, his friends were kind of ragging on him. They're like, "Hey, man, we saw the security footage. That kind of looks like Tyler. Ha, ha, ha," like they're joking. And what did Tyler Robinson respond on Discord? "Hey, guys, I have bad news for you all. It was me at UVU yesterday. I'm sorry for all this. I'm surrendering through a sheriff friend in a few moments. And it was me. Look at the pictures from the surveillance footage. It was me. I'm serious." And then not only that, he did surrender with a sheriff friend of the family and turn himself in for this crime. So let's look back at this chain. We have surveillance footage. We have multiple witnesses IDing him on the surveillance footage. We have the surveillance footage puts him at the place where the shot was fired. We have a weapon. It's his weapon. It's his family weapon. His DNA is on it. It's carved with special bullets that he prepared. We know this because one was found in his house and because he admitted to it. He confessed in text message, in goodbye note, over Discord. There
30
is
seconds.
multiple layers of overwhelming evidence pointing out that Tyler Robinson did this crime. And it's not just that any one of these points to it. They all point to it and they corroborate each other. And if that's not overwhelming, I'm not sure what is.
All right. You can end it right there. We'll reset the time. Make sure I'm unmuted. All right. Okay, Didi, we're going to turn it over to you. 5-10 minutes on an opening here, then we'll get into the open dialogue. Guys, like the video. If you're just joining us, let's get this out into the algorithm and let a lot of eyes hit it. Let's go. Whenever you're ready, Didi, I'll hit the timer.
Absolutely. I want to say thank you, Ryan, for agreeing to have this conversation with me. I know you're super eager to do it. Jesus Christ is Lord. I want to start off with that today. I believe today's discussion, much like Ryan has stated, this discussion will ultimately come down to a difference in evidentiary standards, or perhaps more accurately, a difference in how we assess the evidence. In other words, I believe, much like Ryan stated, we're probably going to have a fundamental disagreement over what the word overwhelming actually means to us personally. I don't know what happened to Charlie Kirk. As someone who is genuinely approaching this conversation in good faith, I truly would like to know what happened to Charlie. I'm sure you and I will both concede to many points during today's discussion. And I don't think there will be much disagreement that there are several pieces of quote unquote evidence that could point to Tyler Robinson being involved in what happened to Charlie Kirk. But being involved does not necessarily mean that he was the person who actually took Charlie Kirk's life, let alone the person who was on the rooftop of the Losey Center. And I think you and I can both agree that Tyler Robinson, according to his own supposed boyfriend, Lance Twiggs, was someone who apparently never talked, according to Lance Twiggs. Tyler Robinson was someone that never talked about politics or the LGBTQ issues in relation to Charlie Kirk. My position today is not that I have overwhelming evidence that Tyler Robinson is a patsy, although I do believe there is good reason to believe that they may be the case by default. My position today is that there is overwhelming evidence that some sort of or some kind of cover-up is taking place. And one of the many reasons that I and many others struggle to believe that Tyler Robinson took out Charlie Kirk all by himself from the rooftop of the Losey Center, outside of simply not trusting the government and recognizing that the government has lied to us many times before, is that many of the most important, and one could argue most damning, pieces of evidence that would absolutely incriminate Tyler Robinson are, as of today, some of the most questionable and disputed pieces of evidence we have available, whether that is the video footage, the images, or lack thereof of Tyler Robinson in the parking garage on campus, or the lack of clear footage showing him on the roof. We're told this person is Tyler Robinson, but where's the rifle, right? We're told that we're supposed to see a rifle in his pants. Instead, many of us see what appears to be a bulge where his cell phone would be, as I'm sure we'll discuss later. We also see him bending both legs on camera, or changing the legs that he bends. And I understand, before we get into it, that this may be that is possible to bend your legs with a rifle in it. But based on the footage we have seen, it certainly makes this explanation less obvious. Tyler was supposedly on the rooftop for 32 minutes, the one rooftop that local, state, and UVU police apparently seemed to miss. And then there's the question of Charlie's extensive, very expensive security detail. Civilians apparently saw the person on the roof well in advance, and there's video evidence of this, yet nothing was done in time, at least according to what we currently know. And to our knowledge, the person who filmed that individual has never been even contacted by law enforcement. That sounds eeringly similar to some of the questions surrounding the Butler narrative. The point is that we notice patterns. We're told that we're supposed to see a bulge, as I stated before. I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself. Again, I understand that it may be possible that while okay, I double typed there. Here we are. Today you will not see a single piece of evidence presented that demonstrates in an irrefutable way that Tyler Robinson is the person shown in every image or video being attributed to him, not only anywhere on campus, but even at the police station. That includes his car that Ryan has already stated. That includes his license plate. That includes the footage currently available or supposedly available from the Losey Center rooftop, which, by the way, doesn't show him actually taking the shot. All right. Apparently, according to an official statement during the preliminary hearing, such footage does not even exist. That is absolutely mind-blowing, given that flock cameras are all over Utah, not to mention the incredible number of cameras throughout the entire campus. We shouldn't have to wait until the trial to at least see one clear image of Tyler Robinson on that campus if such evidence exists. And that is the distinction I want to make very clear today. This discussion is not simply about whether Tyler Robinson was involved or not. It is about whether there's overwhelming evidence that Tyler Robinson actually shot Charlie Kirk. There are several discrepancies that will be discussed today as well. When you consider the fact that several professionals, including Green Berets, former military personnel, law enforcement officers, and former SEAL Team 6 member Rob O'Neill have argued that what happened on video makes little sense when compared with the 30-6 narrative. Those concerns need and deserve to be addressed. When you consider the fact that the crime scene was paved over only days later and that a separate crew was reportedly used to excavate the earth underneath where Charlie was sitting, that raises questions. I understand that in itself isn't necessarily suspicious, but we'll get into that in the dialogue, in the back and forth. When you consider the fact that, from our understanding, the microphone Charlie was wearing has never been in police custody, that raises another question, because that microphone could potentially help us understand whether something else happened by way of the audio. When you consider that pieces of evidence, including Charlie Kirk's clothing, necklace, cell phone, and the microphone that I just mentioned, were reportedly turned over to TPUSA and Erica Kirk, that raises serious questions about evidence preservation and chain of custody. When you consider that the SUV was reportedly scrubbed, immediately sold, and sent away to auction, that raises another question. When you consider that Terrell Farnsworth was allegedly allowed to, well, not even allegedly, we watched him on film contaminate the crime scene, took the SD card, stood on top of Charlie's chair, or the chair that Charlie was sitting in that probably had blood splatter. Some could argue that probably had blood splatter on it, and immediately began going through the contents of the SD card just moments after Charlie was allegedly hit. That raises another concern. To our knowledge, he was never charged with anything related to that conduct. And to my understanding, that's a felony charge, right? These things are extremely suspicious, and at minimum deserves to be investigated. Why was he doing this, right? And the explanations that have been given are not satisfactory at all. Instead, what you'll hear many times from the opposing side, not necessarily from Ryan specifically, he comes off like a nice guy, but generally from people who take his position, is that something along the lines of, okay, fine, there were many weird behaviors that day, inconsistencies, irregularities, unanswered questions, and reasons to believe that something else could potentially be going on in addition to the Tyler Robinson piece. But unfortunately, that doesn't exactly equal quote unquote interlocking evidence that someone other than Tyler killed Charlie. So let's just go with what the federal government has given us, or what the state has given us, and stop being low IQ conspiracy theorists. Many people want you to believe that the irregularities we are witnessing are simply the result of incompetence, as if everyone involved were completely inexperienced, because apparently all these things can be explained away as incompetence while simultaneously accepting that all of the evidence clearly points to Tyler Robinson actually shooting Charlie with no help from anybody else. That is the state's case. And I agree with one part of that argument. Finding something weird, strange, or unusual is not necessarily enough for a court of law. I get that it's not about vibes and feels. It's about what you can prove. I agree with that. But it is very important to recognize that the majority of people following this case are not attorneys, right? Most have never studied law, nor do most of us claim to be legal experts, and we don't care to. What we care about is trustworthy evidence that makes sense. What we care about are answers to other important questions, including the highly unusual behavior of people close to Charlie that day. What we care about are the unusual changes TPUSA made that day. In our view, we have still not been given, it has still had not been adequately explained. We care about the apparent complete 180-degree change in his organization since September the 10th. We care about the alleged complaints and grievances Charlie was facing in his personal life, according to the people who knew him. We care about the Iran war, which Charlie reportedly opposed and strongly advised President Trump not to participate in, a war that ultimately took place after September the 10th. We care about Joe Kent's announcement that he had potential leads of foreign ties involvement, but Kash Patel himself allegedly shut him down from investigating those potential foreign ties. We care about law enforcement struggling to find the weapon despite having bomb detection K9s present, only for it to be found later by what appears to be more FBI present and not as many dogs. We care about the countless allegations of lies and strange behavior surrounding Charlie's wife over the past 10 months. We care about TPUSA's unwillingness, in our view, to simply have an open dialogue with the public about many of these questions. We care about the lack of good faith actors willing to acknowledge that alternative theories are at least plausible, including the drone theory presented by We're Not Going to Mars, Chris
seconds.
Martison, and others, which I would argue is far more plausible than the Tyler Robinson theory. We care about discrepancies in timelines and discrepancies between different accounts. We care about what we can actually see on camera very clearly, such as the allegation that Charlie's team denied medical assistance, placed him into an SUV, and did not allow a single EMT to ride with him on the way to the hospital. Why would they do that? We care about George Zinn immediately taking credit and creating a diversion. People say, oh, he's just crazy. He's a crazy old man who's known for doing this, but that does not explain how it appeared that he had prior knowledge of what would eventually take place. We're not buying the explanation simply given to us.
All right, that's your time. If you want to finish your sentence.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you for the openings. I am fading away into the sunlight, as you can tell. Looks like the sun's setting right on my camera.
It's a good look, Mike.
I normally have that a little lower. We do debates usually about an hour or two after this time, so bear with me. It'll go away. I'm not going to mess with it. I'm going to reset the time for 60 minutes, and then when we get to about 50 to 55, I'll ask you guys if you want to do a quick little individual closing each for 2 to 5 minutes, just to summarize what you think's going on. Yes, I'm ghosting. Here we go.
Okay.
You guys can ask each other questions. Just try to let each other finish whatever they're saying before you ask your next one. And if you're asked a question, let's try to answer the question before you ask a follow-up.
Yeah. And by the way, I think a lot of this is probably going to be, Didi, you asking questions about various pieces of evidence that I presented because I have the affirmative. So I laid out the evidence I found overwhelming. I suspect you're going to want to ask me some questions about it. But before we do that, the question I had for you was, because I am an attorney, I think I look at this with a bit of a different perspective. And to me, if I put myself in the shoes of the defense team, right, their client is in jail and he's going to be in jail for like another year. He's already been in jail. If they had evidence that like the surveillance footage was faked or the text messages were faked, if they had evidence like that, they could have blown up the preliminary hearing. They could have gotten their guy to walk free. He wouldn't be in jail for another year. No defense lawyer is going to let their client sit in jail for a year for no reason, right? So I guess the question I have whenever people talk about what all kind of different theories, like maybe the video's faked, maybe the text messages are faked, maybe this is fake, that is fake, that sort of thing, is why do you think the defense team didn't bring this stuff up? If they could prove it was fake, their client would be free.
That's an incredible question. Thank you for the question, Ryan. My first response would be, in all transparency, I don't know. I think the reason why, and I didn't get to a lot of the things, and I knew my opening statement was probably going to run to 12 or 13 minutes, but I still tried to sneak it in to see if y'all were going to let me. But one of the things I did not get to talk about was the fact that majority of the people that followed, if we only cared about the outcome of this trial, like if that's all we cared about, then you and I wouldn't be here today. I think we also care about this thing called the court of public opinion. You and I are not here discussing because of the trial itself. Who cares what Didi thinks? Who cares what Ryan thinks? You're not on the case. We care about what majority of the people that are following this case in the public care. Are you confused about that?
Yeah. Well, I guess, do you think he's going to get convicted?
Well, I don't know. But the point that I'm making here is you and I are here discussing this because clearly in the court of public opinion, there is not this sort of majority that feel one way or the other. There's a lot of conflicting beliefs. There's a lot of people that don't believe the given narrative. Would you agree with that?
Sure.
The reason why I'm pointing that out is to say majority of us are not attorneys. Majority of us don't know how these things typically work in court. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I'm approaching this from the perspective of the average civilian. I want to preface what I'm about to say next with that, because a lot of times we don't understand like the purpose of a preliminary hearing, right? As opposed to mm-hmm. actual trial. So all we see is what's presented in the preliminary hearing and what the defense is not allowed to do. All right. So we're learning as we go. Mm-hmm. And if something has not been presented as of yet, our perspective is like my current belief system is that they're not allowed to. The defense was not allowed to share certain things doing the preliminary hearing?
I can help with that. They are allowed to. Now, in the interest of just having a good faith conversation, being as fair as possible, at a preliminary hearing, they might choose not to. And let me tell you the difference between the two things. If at a preliminary hearing, the standard of proof for the prosecution is very favorable. So there's certain types of evidence that the defense might not put forward because they don't think it's going to be enough. It's not going to be enough, right? Like, for example, like if they thought they had something that was like a little detail that was wrong, that's not going to move the needle. It's not going to be enough. They might save that for trial. So they're not always incentivized to put everything forward. But if they could blow up the whole case, if they could prove the government was just lying, those are fake photos, those are fake text messages, they would do that at the preliminary hearing. And they are allowed to call witnesses. They did call witnesses during the preliminary hearing. The government didn't want to call the DNA experts. And then the defense called the DNA experts and cross-examined them for a couple hours. So the defense is allowed to call witnesses. They chose not to. And to me, that's the most compelling piece of evidence against the idea that like the text messages are fake and the surveillance is fake and this and that. Because as an attorney, I could tell you, if I could prove that those text messages were fake, you couldn't keep me out of court with a smile on my face. Because just one second, imagine how that goes. If I prove those are fake, that means that the police is lying. That means the whole investigation is suspect. That means those police perjured themselves. Those police might go to jail. The case against my client gets thrown out of court. The police all get fired. I'm a hero. My client's not in jail anymore. There's no way I'm not doing that.
Absolutely. Great point. Here's my, because again, I can only go so deep into the legal jargon with you, but what I can say is I can flip that and I can say, well, if you're the prosecution and it's the preliminary hearing, why would you not present irrefutable images of Tyler Robinson?
They did.
Where? Show me one.
Well, so they put the image on screen.
Show it to me.
So, well, hold on. Let me explain to people what happened if you didn't watch the hearing. They put the image on screen, and then the testifying police officer said, I identified this person as Tyler Robinson. Then they had Lance Twiggs' testimony where he said that was definitely Tyler Robinson. Then Tyler Robinson had in Discord messages said it was him. And they also have, though they didn't testify at the hearing, I'll admit that, but they also have the TPUSA representative who said they talked to Tyler Robinson that day, and they ran the license plate on his car and his car was there. So they have like 5 or 6 different ways of confirming that picture is him.
So I see what you just did there. I'm well aware of everything you just said, but that you didn't actually answer the question that I asked you. In the actual preliminary hearing, why would they not show any image of his clear face on the actual campus?
They showed the images from the surveillance footage they had, and it was enough that it was. But like,
so what you're saying is they don't have any clear images in 4K. They don't have to be 4K. Just clearly it's Tyler Robinson. Well, they don't have any of them.
I guess my point is, and you said this earlier, so I don't want to make this like a gotcha because I think you were transparent about this. They're not playing to the court of public opinion. They're playing to the law, to the court, right? They're not doing it for you. They're doing it for the judge. And the images that they gave were sufficiently clear that multiple witnesses were willing to testify that was him. So I guess the question is, why would they?
They testified that it looked like him. They testified that they looked like Tyler Robinson.
Yeah.
The question that I'm stating, because again, it's very important that I keep reiterating this. There is tens of thousands of us who are really approaching this in good faith, and we're not convinced. Why is it so hard for them just to show the image of Tyler?
They did show the image. They did show the image of Tyler. Y'all just didn't accept it. But beyond that point, they also had enhanced footage of the roof, and they have enhanced footage that zoomed in. The issue is the defense convinced the judge not to make that evidence public. But
when you say enhanced, explain to the audience what you mean by that, Ryan.
Zoomed in so that you can see the person more clearly. And I think they also added circles and some highlighting to make it easier to follow. Because if you guys haven't seen the footage, if you look at the footage of the guy in the black hoodie, who I think is Tyler Robinson pretty clearly, but people can debate that, moving across the roof, that it's a very, very the camera's pretty far away, so it's very, very zoomed out. So what they provided was a zoomed in version where they circle him and you can see him moving, and the
So I
judge
wanna
has that.
So I just want to just make sure I understand this. So you're saying there's video footage that we've all seen from however many feet away from the rooftop showing this person running across the rooftop that's extremely blurry. It could be anyone. You're stating that they zoomed in court and the footage became more clear.
I haven't seen it, so I don't know what it looks like. I'm telling you what
But we have witnesses.
I'm telling you what they said to the judge, and the lawyers wouldn't lie to the judge because they get disciplined.
Right,
and it'd be
right.
very obvious because they're going to hand it to him. If it's not what they say it is, he's going to call bullshit on them. So you wouldn't lie to the judge. It'd be crazy.
Okay, so Ron, I just want to make sure I understand. So the video footage of this person running across the roof, you are convinced that it's Tyler Robinson, correct?
Yeah.
Can you tell from the footage that it's Tyler Robinson?
From the footage itself?
No. Can you tell from the footage on the roof that he actually shot Charlie Kirk?
No, the way you know it's Tyler Robinson is that they tracked him in the stairwell where they do have footage of him that's identifiable.
They have footage of a person.
And then they track that person moving across campus over time. Then they found his DNA on the roof on the screwdriver. Then they found his rifle in the woods where the guy ran with his DNA all over it. Then they found cartridges that were carved by him using a tool he borrowed from his boyfriend.
This is important.
And then he confessed to it. So you take the confession, the video,
it's interlocking.
You take it all comes together, and it shows that that guy on that roof. If I had to bet every dollar in my pocket, I'm betting that was Tyler Robinson.
Absolutely, and I'm not here to unequivocally state that it's not. I don't believe that it is. But this is what I am saying, because when you stack things on top of each other like that, it sounds so convincing. Let's actually break down one by one.
But that's how a court case works. You stack evidence.
Got you. Okay, fair.
Well, let's give him a chance to make his case.
Sure. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, so number one, you say that there was a fire cartridge in the gun. That's true. And I believe there was 3 unfired ones. Is that correct?
I don't remember the exact number, but there was.
Yeah, I believe there was 4 total. One of them was fired.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't remember the number, but it sounds.
Does that indicate when that weapon was fired or where it was fired? Do we have proof of who took that gun to wherever it was found in the woods? We don't.
Well, we see somebody wearing the same clothes that Tyler Robinson was wearing, carrying a rifle wrapped in a towel, hopping off the roof, running to the woods. Well, hold on. You asked a question. Let me answer. Run into the wooded area where the rifle was found, which is the same wooded area that Tyler Robinson scoped out earlier that day, with his DNA all over it, the carvings all over it. And by the way, when he texted Lance Twiggs, he said, "I'm going back to get my rifle."
Sure.
And then later that night, we see his car. They run his plate. He was going back to get his rifle.
Got you.
So we have some pretty good reasons to think that was him and his rifle.
Yeah. So in other words, we have nothing on footage that confirms that it was Tyler Robinson. We're going to get to this because you keep stacking these things, and we're going to break these things down individually.
Mm-hmm.
So just real fast, the footage on the roof. Are you claiming here today, Ryan, that you saw a rifle?
I haven't seen the enhanced footage. I was in court. I haven't seen it.
I agree. And okay. Yeah. So do you believe that he had?
I know people who have seen it, but I haven't seen it.
Right. And one of those people you claim you had on your show, and they give conflicting testimony from what 2 other witnesses or multiple witnesses stated that they saw. They claimed that what we saw on the internet is the same thing that was shown in court. In fact, we see that on footage. Well, it was accidentally shown to us on footage. But
my point is more this. If there was no footage of the roof, the evidence would still be overwhelming.
Got you. That's your opinion. So when this person jumps off the roof, Ryan, the thing that they're carrying, do you believe that that's a rifle?
Yeah, a rifle wrapped in a towel.
Okay. So there's video footage of when this person hops off the roof. If you slow it down slow enough, this item, whatever it is, literally folds. Rifles do not fold the way in which this did.
Okay. Now
it folded like a towel. But the problem is, if it has a rifle on the inside, where's the rifle? We never see the rifle. And I'm asking in good faith. If a rifle is shown to me, Ryan, you and I are on the same page. So I'll get on your side and we'll argue against everybody else.
I did not see it folding, and in fact, it looked the opposite to me. But let's say you've seen a video of it folding, right?
100%.
Now there's 2 hypotheses, right? Because you got this video off the internet, I assume.
Correct.
All right. So one hypothesis is that somebody posted a fake video on the internet, because people do that. The other hypothesis is that, in fact, this video shows the rifle folding up in a way that's suspicious and destroys the case. And the defense team is either so stupid they didn't notice it, or they're in on it. And that's why they didn't bring it to the judge's attention. But the thing is, if you watch the hearing, the defense team objected to everything. They objected constantly. They're constantly objecting and saying, Judge, don't let this, don't do this. They're very active. They're not sitting there passive. If I had to figure out what my probabilities are, the odds that the defense is in on it or so incompetent that they didn't raise this to the judge seems pretty low. And the odds that somebody doctored an internet footage for clicks seems pretty high.
So now we're going to go to, when we actually delve into the evidence itself, maybe what I actually saw is a fake video. And that's probably the high probability here. Because what I'm telling you is I'm looking at the same footage that everybody else saw on the internet, and we slowed the footage down.
Mm-hmm.
The item that this person was carrying when they hopped off the roof, if you slow it down slow enough, the item folds. It doesn't look like a gun.
So I'm going to refer you to what the Tyler Robinson's defense team said about like the internet crowd talking about this. This is from a hearing on October 24th, 2025. They said in court, there's reference to, unstable people coming into the courthouse, to conspiracy theorists saying things online. We're all aware of that. I mean, I don't know what the court has read. It's none of my business. I've received some wacky phone calls and emails, people telling me what they think happened here. It's noise. We're not litigating this case in the press. We're not talking to the crazies. My point is, the internet and the public sphere is full of people with opinions, is full of people who are willing to make up evidence to get clicks. But when you're in court, you're held to an evidentiary standard. And for the lawyers, you're held to a standard of professional responsibility. So if they tell the judge, hey, look, that rifle's folding, and then the judge, or like they fake that video, and then it turns out that the defense counsel's just making stuff up, it's devastating for their client. It's devastating for their reputation. It's devastating for their profession, their career going forward. So when I say that I'm more moved by the evidence that's presented in the courtroom than I am by stuff that people circulate online, it's because the people in the courtroom are held to a standard. They're held to account.
Ryan, but I'm not here to dispute that with you, brother. We both agree with that. I would never argue against it. The problem is, first and foremost, you've already stated you haven't seen all of the evidence. None of us have.
None of us have.
So you can't argue you can't argue in favor of something you haven't seen yet, like the video footage on the roof. We go by what we've seen in the public sphere, and what we've seen, we've slowed the video down. Number one, you never see him take a shot. Number two, is I'll hold that until we get to the screwdriver. How do we proceed with arguing with the images and the videos if the response I get, from you is going to be, well, we don't know if that's what they actually showed in court or if that's AI?
No, what I'm saying is that when you have sworn testimony in court from law enforcement officers, from witnesses under penalty of perjury, meaning they're lying, they go to jail.
Yeah.
Right. And they provide evidence, then that evidence is something that I'm going to give a great deal of weight because there's reason to believe it's true. When I see a random dude online post something, I don't give that a lot of credibility because that guy, he's not injured if he's wrong. He doesn't have the same stamp of credibility because he's not in an environment where the credibility is being checked in the same way. So what I'm saying is, if I posted a video right now of you turning into a spaceship and flying out of the room, I would assume people would give that very little credibility because it's just something I posted online. I just used my AI, said, turn him into a spaceship, make him take off.
Okay, so the text message that Andrew Wilson, your buddy, just released, how do you feel about that text message?
What does that have to do with this?
I'm going somewhere with it. How do you feel about the text message?
I feel pretty good about it, but where's that going with this?
Well, because you're stating that if it's not in the court, if it's not being shown in the court, then you can't hold it to this sort of high standard. But you believe that the text is real.
Well, I was on Andrew's fact-checking team, right?
Correct.
I've seen the text message. Yeah.
But that doesn't. It wasn't shown in the court of law.
Sure, but I've seen it personally.
That check, but,
I
you're
like,
not in the court
physically
of law,
I was
though.
there. Like what? So what are we talking about?
That doesn't. No. That doesn't change what was just stated, brother.
What was
Is the
just
same
stated?
text message being shown in the court? It doesn't matter if you saw it first. You or you. I'm not you. The public is not you.
But I'm not trying to convince you about the veracity of that text message.
But I'm just trying to see if you're consistent, and you're not.
How am I being inconsistent?
Because I'm saying that there are things in the public sphere that we as the public investigate, analyze, and you're saying, well, if it's not being shown in the court, then we shouldn't trust it.
No, I'm saying that when you analyze things, you should assign credibility based off of the circumstances in which you find the evidence. In court evidence has very high credibility because there's all these checks that keep people from fabricating, from lying. There's penalties in place. Online credibility is very low because there's almost no checks. And in fact, there's an incentive to lie because it gets you clicks and attention. So the credibility is very different. Then you asked me about a text message, which has nothing to do with our topic of debate, really. But
it literally does. It's about Charlie Kirk.
Well, but no, it has almost nothing to do with it because it's not evidence against Tyler Robinson. It's a thing that Andrew said, and I happen to believe it because I physically saw it with my own two eyes, but it's not part of the evidence against Tyler Robinson.
Okay.
Well,
So-
let me put it this way, just to explain
So
it. If
the images-
if
hold on,
Charlie
because you're-
texted the day before
but
that he
Ryan,
was afraid the left was going to kill
you're
him, it
dominating
would
the
be
space, and I'm
irrelevant.
being respectful. You're dominating the space. So just real fast. So any of the images, the images of his car, of his license plate, do we have an image of his license plate that clearly shows his license plate?
I'm not sure.
We don't. I'll answer that for you.
Yeah. But we have law enforcement officers that testified that they ran the
Officers?
plate.
Sirs, I think it was just one.
It might have been. I'm not.
It
think
is
was
just one. I think
no,
it was that night.
Sorry, it was one, and then he was referencing the police report of another one because there's the guy who's testifying in court about the surveillance footage, and then there's the report of the guy who was in the police car that turned away Tyler Robinson's car on the morning when he was coming back to check for the rifle. And so there's two different ones, but that's the two officers I was thinking of.
Okay, well, you could be right, and I do mean that in good faith, but my understanding is that there's only one police officer that testified that he believed that he saw Tyler Robinson, and then he thought to get partial plate numbers.
Yeah, so there's two ways that they could do it, right? Because there was the one officer in the morning who ran the partial plate when the car came back in the early morning of the 11th, right? Then they also have footage of his car in the parking garage on the day of the shooting.
Correct.
So I think, and I'm doing this from memory, but I think if memory serves, that the order was they ran the plate on the 11th in the early morning when this officer had like a hunch, he ran the plate, right? So that's one. Then later, when they were doing their investigation, they looked at the surveillance footage and they saw the same car in the parking garage, and they could confirm it was the same car via the plate. So but it happened in backwards order, right? Like
I see what you're saying. My understanding was it happened a bit different, but fine, I'll grant you that. Again, I'm taking the position that of most people I've seen and heard from, yes, there's a great amount of people who take your position for sure, but there's so many of us that do not, and I'm just listing out the reasons why we don't. The footage, if only we could just see the license plate. That's blurry. The images of him going up the stairs, if only we can see his face clearly. We don't. The rooftop, if only we can see that it's Tyler Robinson. We don't. Okay, fine. We don't have to see that it's him. Can we at least see the person taking the shot? We don't. The screwdriver that is found on the roof, can we at least see that on body cam footage? Body cam footage turns off. You see, like when these things stack up, it's very hard for people to just say, well, we're only going to pay attention to the things that Ryan listed that are pieces of evidence. The text messages, the Celebrate extraction process, which the Celebrate extraction process itself isn't necessarily unreliable, but it's also not the most, what's the word here? There are certain processes, as I'm sure you understand, that has to take place in order to confirm that what is being shown from the extraction is pretty accurate. such as sort of the timeline, deletions, etc.
Yeah. So the thing about the text messages, and you said a bunch of stuff there, so I'm want to circle back to it, but let's stick on the text messages for a second, and I'll try to remember to address some of the stuff that you said, because I think the text messages is an important point worth getting into. So the way this happens, they have the text messages. They take pictures of the text messages. They extract the data from the phone to ensure the text messages, right? And then they had Lance Twiggs sit down under oath, and they showed him each text message, and they asked him, is this true? Is this an authentic text message that you received? And he said yes, right? Like that all of that is before the judge. So for the text messages to be fake, I guess I'm trying to figure out.
Well, like, no. I'll help you. It's not I'm not arguing that they're fake. I'm arguing that it hasn't been proven if they're fake or not, because all we have are the extractions. We have pictures as well, but this is why I was saying earlier, when you just stack things on top of each other as if it's like so overwhelming. But if we break these things down, it's very clear why people are very skeptical about this.
Well, but
Lance Twiggs, hold on, I'm about to explain it. Yeah. Lance Twiggs is confirming that these text messages are real. This is the same Lance Twiggs that for some reason has immunity, despite the fact that one of the witnesses, one of the construction worker, his description of one of the people that was dressed in all black, right, with long hair, fit the description of Lance Twiggs more so than it does Tyler Robinson. This person, whose DNA is also found on multiple different things that are considered quote unquote evidence, he's the one with immunity. He's the one that's testifying against Tyler Robinson. It calls into question his testimony. There's nothing confusing about that.
No, he doesn't. Well, this is a misconception. It's a common one. He doesn't have like full immunity. He has what's called use immunity, which means that they cannot prosecute him for the testimony he gave. The reason that he needed use immunity is that in the back and forth with Tyler Robinson, they talked about destroying evidence, and he in fact did destroy evidence. He burned the goodbye note. That's a crime. So he confessed to crimes. So if they didn't give him use immunity, then when they asked him to testify, he would just take the Fifth Amendment and say, I'm not testifying because you can't make me testify against myself. So you give him use immunity so that you can get his testimony. He's not immune for like murder. If they found out that he was involved in the murder, he's not immune. He's only immune for the statement that he gave. And then backing up, when they say they have the text messages, what they mean is they have Lance Twiggs. They can look at Lance Twiggs' phone. They have Tyler Robinson's phone. They have the data from the phones. They have Lance Twiggs sitting down saying this is all real and true. So not only they have the evidence digitally, they have a confirming witness. They have basically everything. The level of conspiracy that would be required to fake all that is mind-boggling.
Well, we haven't seen those things as of yet. Well, all right, so.
But they told the judge that they have them. They referenced them. And of course, what I'm doing is I'm taking the attorney's word for it, because if they say to the judge, this is the evidence, and then they hand the judge the evidence and he opens it and he's like, this isn't what you told me it was. They're going to have a big problem on their hands. And
fair. And as I told you in my opening statement, I was being genuine. When I said that I'm here in good faith, I really do mean that.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
But however, so the fact that we haven't seen it yet, that adds to the point, or the reason why so many people are still skeptical to believe these things. And are you familiar with? And I want to pull this up. It was a case where the Celebrite extraction data came into question. Her name is Karen Reed. Are you familiar with the Karen Reed case?
I'm not deeply familiar with it. No, some of my friends covered it, but I haven't covered that one.
Okay, and I don't have to go much into details, but within that case, there was some text messages that were called into question and then were later removed from evidence because it was extremely misleading with the times. So I'm going to read what I wrote down here in my notes. This is what it says in the summary. The Karen Reed case showed that Celebrite extraction data shouldn't automatically be treated as infallible. In that case, Celebrite initially reported a 2:27 a.m. timestamp that became a major piece of evidence, but later removed that timestamp from its automated reporting after determining that the artifact could be missing. Another forensic program, Magnet Axiom, continued to display the underlying artifact. The important lesson isn't that Celebrite is unreliable. It's that forensic extraction software can misinterpret or differently label underlying phone artifacts.
Yeah, but here they also had the physical phone, and they also had Lance Twiggs going through the messages and authenticating them.
So they had Lance's phone. Did they have Tyler's phone too?
Yeah, they did take Tyler's phone. I think the photos are of Lance's phone, if I recall correctly. But
right,
I mean,
from my understanding, I don't believe there's Celebrite extraction that was showcased during the preliminary hearing of Tyler's phone. I could be wrong about that. But my understanding is that it was not.
The way that the evidence came out, like we only see a small part of it. I can't tell, sitting here today, I can't tell you for sure which phone was extracted. I do know that when you get arrested for murder and they book you, they take your phone. So, like the idea that his phone is certainly not in his possession when he's sitting in jail all this time, right? So but more critically, and this is the thing that I keep coming back to, Tyler, you have Lance Twiggs saying these are real, going through them under oath, saying these are real. And again, if there was a way to blow this all up, like if the defense had a smoking gun that could have blown up these text messages,
they would have done it.
Oh my God, they would have done it. They would have done it, and he'd be free. And by the way, that lawyer would be like a hero, and they'd be like the next Johnny Cochran, right? They'd be hired for everything. They'd be making millions.
Ryan, let me ask you an honest question, man, because I'm so curious about this part. And part of the reason why I was excited to talk to an attorney about it is because I was sharing this on my channel before we hopped on. What this has become a lot of times, and it happened in my conversation with Warren, is tribalism. Instead of actually trying to figure out what truly happened to Charlie, what you get is people name calling and insulting, which I'm sure is taking place on your channel at this moment. This is what you typically find: nasty people, instead of just trying to figure out what happened to Charlie. I preface my statement with that to say, why are there so many other people, including attorneys, multiple attorneys online, not just creators themselves or independent journalists themselves, but people who have just pitched in their opinions, have stated that the opposite of what you just said, right? They believe that the preliminary hearing is not a time when the defense would present this sort of damning or groundbreaking evidence that would disprove the prosecution's case.
Because
why is it that you as an attorney can state this, but then other attorneys are stating something completely opposite?
Because they're playing on a subtlety in the law that's hard to explain. So I'll give it a shot, but it's a little bit hard to explain. This is why there's some wiggle room that they're playing with. At the preliminary hearing, the judge is not allowed to pick between competing inferences. What that means is, if he looks at the evidence and it's reasonable that Tyler Robinson did it, we go to trial. But if he looks at the evidence, it's reasonable that Tyler did it and it's reasonable someone else did it, you still go to trial. So because of that, there's certain types of evidence that the defense might not submit because they keep it under their hat and save it for the trial. But we're not talking about that kind of evidence where you have a competing inference.
Right. We're talking about evidence that could
boom, bombshell, blow up the case,
understood.
Like stuff like, because I mean, man, like, could you, if you could prove the police faked the photos, like, God damn, everyone.
Well, it's not even about faking the photos, because there's one thing to fake a photo, it's another thing to post a photo that's not actually Tyler Robinson that they claim to believe is Tyler Robinson. Those are two different things. And to be clear, I want to make sure that we're on the same page here, Ryan. The question that I just asked you is not about those sort of smaller pieces of evidence. I've heard attorneys argue that the reason why major pieces of evidence that could alleviate Tyler were not shared during the preliminary hearing, because that's not what the preliminary hearing is for.
Well, I'd point you to Andrea Burkhart, who she's another attorney. She's very good. I think her coverage of this has been like the most fair. She's a defense attorney, so she leans defense, but she's not political. And I understand your point, because I am political. So there's always when you're talking to someone who does political advocacy, you always got to take that into account. But she's not. Right. And if you look at her coverage, she's going to say the exact same thing I just said. And it's just because at the end of the day, he's in jail. You know, I mean, your client's in jail. If you could get him out, you would, right? Like it's not that complicated. If you could get him out, you would, because why are you going to let him rot in jail? Because this trial's not going to happen probably for like 9 months to a year. It's a long time to let an innocent man rot in jail if you have evidence that proves that, you know, he was framed or he's a patsy or this sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to let you guys know we have 26 minutes left. So, and then we'll get into the Q&A.
Yeah. I mean, I know we earlier you were talking about, we talked about a bunch of different things in terms of the surveillance footage and whatnot. But I guess my question for you is, okay, though I think it was him on the roof because I see the surveillance footage. There's testimony about him moving across the campus on some footage that I agree we have not necessarily seen yet. There's the zoomed in footage that I agree we haven't seen yet, but then also his DNA's on the screwdriver, his rifle's in the woods, the bullet carvings, the text messages. It all comes together and it convinces me that this is probably true. And even if you took out one piece, like even if there was no surveillance footage of the roof, I'd still think he did it based off the other evidence. So I guess what I'm wondering about is
why am I still not convinced?
Why doesn't the fact that all this evidence points in the same direction move you?
Fair question. And I'm going to speak for so many people when I say this. It is because these pieces of evidence that you're talking about are called into question, right? So when you say there's this piece of there's evidence on the towel, it's not only Tyler's evidence. I mean DNA that's on the towel. Who took it to the woods? You say, well, they have reason to believe that it's Tyler. Can we just see one clear image? We don't see a clear image of him in the stairwell. We don't see a clear image of him at the police station. We don't see a clear image of him in the parking garage. In fact, the footage or the image that they shared in court, based on what has been released, appears, and I'm not saying that the court did this intentionally because I've seen people explain this away, but my understanding of sort of this image that was released in the parking garage, that wasn't even Tyler Robinson. It wasn't Tyler.
So you think the officer that identified him and Lance Twiggs were both, lying or wrong?
I think the image that they gave us was not Tyler Robinson, and that has been confirmed. That's what I think.
But both of them looked at that image and said that it was him. So you think they were lying or wrong?
Yes.
Okay.
Ryan, I have a better question for you, Ryan.
No. I just want to run through. So
because it seems like if they're in the court of law and they're under oath, they have to tell the truth. I have a question for you. The image of this supposed person that's Tyler Robinson in the parking garage, not even this the stairwell, was that Tyler Robinson?
Yeah,
do you believe it's
probably? Yeah.
But we have two different images, bro. It's been proven that it's not him.
It has not.
It literally has been proven.
Proven by who? Where?
On the.
You see where I'm going with this?
Yes, and it's crazy. Your argument is if it's on the internet, it's not to be trusted.
Well, my argument is that when somebody doctors a photo and puts it online and the defense attorneys choose not to use it because it would make them look like idiots, that I'm gonna go with the fact that defense attorneys didn't use it. And I guess the reason I was asking you about this is it seems like for what you're saying to be right,
what am I saying to be right?
That this is a fake image, right? And that the people who identified it were wrong or lying.
Yeah.
Right. So the officer has to be wrong or lying. And then Lance Twiggs has to be wrong or lying. And even if they are wrong or lying, they'd have to explain why his car was in the garage, unless they were
Where's
wrong.
The proof that his car was in the garage?
They ran the plate.
Image of his car hasn't. No, even the car was different.
They ran the. So wait. So when the officer said that was his car and they confirmed it, the officer
said that looks like Tyler's car.
Was wrong or lying about that.
No. Very, very sneaky of you. But what he said was it looks like it appears to be Tyler's car.
And you're saying he's wrong or lying.
I'm saying that it doesn't look like Tyler's car to me. It has different
Ryan,
different exhaust pipes. How do you explain that?
Okay. So
stop reading your chat, bro.
I'm not reading my chat, brother. I'm saying they testified it was his car. You're saying that they are wrong or lying because of things you saw on the internet. Now you're saying the same thing about when they identified him.
No.
I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep going. When Tyler Robinson,
30 seconds to Ryan here, and then we'll kick it over to you, DD.
When Tyler Robinson confessed that he committed this crime. And when he confessed, he put specific details about the rifle and the carvings. I guess those were fake? Is that what you're saying?
We just talked about the text messages. We love to get the metadata from the phone so we can at least know the device that was used, because there's even a discrepancy in the time that these Discord messages were supposedly sent, because Tyler Robinson was already Mirandized. But just real fast before we eat,
So those were fake.
No, because you're trying to deflect. The image of his car, you said that it is his car. How do you know that, Ryan?
Because an
You
officer
don't.
testified it was his car based
No,
on the
he
fact
did not.
that they
He testified that it looks like his
model
car.
and license
You're not
plate.
telling the truth. It has different exhaust pipes. How do you explain that?
Because you are probably looking at a doctored photo.
I'm looking at the images. No. I'm looking at the images from the trial, brother.
Look,
From the preliminary hearing.
So then what are you comparing it to?
The images of Tyler. What you mean? I'm comparing it to images of Tyler's car when it was I guess towed.
What do you mean when it was towed?
Was this car not towed?
Well, what image are you referring to?
The image of Tyler's car. Am I misunderstanding that?
Well, you're saying that there's two images of his car. There's the one in the parking garage. I know that one because I saw
Yes.
that one at the preliminary hearing.
Yes.
You're apparently comparing it to some other image.
I'm
What other
comparing it
image
to
are-
an image of Tyler's car when it was towed.
Okay. What image was that? What are we talking about?
How do I answer this question? There's an image
Yeah.
of Tyler's car.
Okay.
I think what you're trying to get me to do is to say that it's an image that I also saw on the internet.
I think
Where
it
else
probably
would I go to
was.
get this image? No.
I think it probably was.
Fair, all right. Hey, Ryan, where did you see the preliminary hearing? Where did you watch it?
I watched it on the internet.
Where?
Correct. On Court
Where?
TV's live feed.
Where? That's the internet. You shouldn't
Mhm.
trust what you saw. That video could have been doctored.
You think Court TV doctored the video of the hearing?
I think watching something on the internet means that you shouldn't trust it, Ryan, by your logic.
You think that my logic extends to you think that
The internet.
someone posting something on X like, oh, look at this, I got this slam dunk footage
Bingo.
versus the people who were in court directed by the judge to point their camera at specific things in real time. You think those
Bingo.
are the same in terms of credibility?
My point is
No.
proven.
Answer the question.
Point
You
that I'm
think
I'm
those
going
are
to
the
answer
same
the
in terms of
question. I'm going to
credibility?
answer it the way I want to answer it. Just hear me out,
Okay.
Ryan.
But
I'm
if
gonna
you don't
I
answer, I'm
promise
gonna
you,
ask
bro.
it again.
Listen. I told you I came in good faith. I'm going to answer your question, bro.
All right.
If it's on the trick that you tried is to try to get me to say social media. I never said social media. Yes, I've seen some things on social media. I said the internet. You're telling me not to trust the internet. Unfortunately for you, the preliminary hearing was also shown on the internet. Should we not trust what we saw?
You gonna answer the question?
Ask it again.
The question was, do you think that Court TV's feed direct from the camera, which
Yep.
the judge was telling the reporter where
Yep.
to point,
Yep.
you think that has the same level of credibility as like stuff I find on X, stuff I find on social media, the internet writ large? You think that's the same thing in terms of credibility?
I think it could, depending on what we're looking at on X.
Okay, so Court
Oh,
TV's
wait, no, you frown.
Court
So-
TV's
so-
in on it too?
You know what? See, this is childish, man. Like this
It's
is
not-
the immaturity I'm talking
It's
about.
not childish. Because what I'm pointing out to you,
In
DD,
on
and
what?
I'm-
Hold on.
I'm
You said
tr-
in
I'm-
on what?
Well, what you've said in our interaction so far is that when the law enforcement officer identified him wrong or lying, when they talk about TPUSA had a witness a representative that identified him and talked to him, probably wrong or lying because you're saying he's not there. When the text messages come in,
I never said he wasn't. Where did that come from? You're
okay,
making things up.
So you
When did
think-
I ever
so-
explicitly
okay,
say Tyler
do you
Robinson
think
wasn't
he
on
was?
campus?
Do you think he was there?
I don't know. I need
Okay.
to see it.
So when the TPUSA witness told police officers they spoke to Tyler Robinson, were they right?
I don't know.
Okay. So
I saw the same images that you saw. The difference between you and I is that I'm honest
Okay.
about what I saw.
Nothing's
Nothing's clear.
Whoa, you're accusing me of lying about something?
No.
All right. Let's start with that point. Okay, he doesn't believe that Tyler Robinson wasn't there. He doesn't know. And then where were we going after that?
Thank you. I do not know if Tyler Robinson was there. I'm simply stating, which makes perfect sense. Where's the images? The images that they gave us does not prove it, which is strange. Ryan, do you not find it strange that there's not one clear image, one clear video footage of Tyler Robinson.
I think the images are clear enough. And by the way, they were
Right.
clear. They were clear enough that
Right.
an officer identified him, his lover identified him,
Yeah,
his family identified him when those were released to the public, his Discord chat identified him when it was released to the public, and then he admitted it was him. So
where does this show that his family identified him?
in the information that was in one of the charging documents, the police, which is a sworn statement, by the way, under oath, that when the family gave their statements to the police, they reported that they identified him off of the surveillance footage that was leaked to the public. That was released to the public.
Mhm.
Now, the family, thank God, was not required to testify at the preliminary hearing because that would have been brutal. So I'm glad that didn't happen. But
why weren't they?
It would have been really brutal. It would
Right. So if you're the prosecution, why would you not have them to do it?
Because it's a real bad look. It's mean. It makes you look like an asshole.
Is that the best you got?
No,
that makes no sense.
Why?
That makes no sense.
They had probable cause. They had probable cause by a fucking mile. Why are they going to?
Why not just add?
What? Because imagine
insult injury.
Because you drag the parents into court and you say, "Is your kid a fucking murderer?" And they say, "I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to testify. I put my baby to death because I love my child." And then they have to go, "If you don't testify, we're going to fucking throw your ass in jail." That's what it makes to force a parent to testify against their kid.
Yeah,
it's a fucking shit show.
It's talking about a guy
thing to do, man. Like that. And
right.
I think it actually speaks well of their character that they didn't force this family to do this because they might have to force them to do it at trial, that they didn't have to force them to do it twice.
Ryan, this passionate speech you just gave convinced nobody. So first and foremost, first and foremost, if you're the prosecution and you have an opportunity to like just put the hammer down and put this to bed, you're gonna show sympathy to the parents. You're talking about a guy you're alleging is guilty of aggravated murder and 6 other charges of pow-powing a man and potentially, risking pow-powing another person or multiple other people. You're claiming that he committed the most infamous, famous political assassination of our lifetime, and you're going to take it easy on him in the preliminary hearing. How about I'm going to give you the real answer?
No, because
how about
you just don't understand preliminary hearings, which is why you're making this mistake.
But you just hold on.
Probable cause.
Wait.
Low
I'm not
standard.
an attorney like you are. I'm not an attorney
so
like
let me
you are.
explain
That's
it to you
fair.
so you'll know.
And I would never try to compete with you legally.
Didi,
What I will say,
question, or are you making a statement right there? Because then we'll hear Ryan's description of.
Is your final answer that the reason why they didn't choose to have the parents to testify? I want to get this on record. It's because they wanted to take it easy and not be too brutal.
On the parents? Yeah, because probable cause is a pretty low standard, and they passed probable cause on day 2 of the hearing.
So you believe the parents will testify in the trial, though?
You just talking a long time. Let me answer. They had probable cause in the bag. It's wrapped up. For example, if you wanted to bet me $100,000 on whether or not they'll find probable cause, I would take that bet right now because it is a certainty that the judge is going to find probable cause. Given that it's a certainty, why would you do that to these parents for no reason? It's a certainty that they're going to get probable cause. It's not like a maybe. This is the most obvious probable cause in the entire world. It's so obvious that the defense, when they were arguing probable cause in their reply brief, didn't even argue that the evidence doesn't show probable cause. They only talked about the aggravator and hearsay and things like this. They didn't say the evidence doesn't demonstrate probable cause because the defense knows that the evidence shows probable cause. It's a done deal. And given that it's a done deal, why on earth would you throw these parents in jail to force them to testify against their kid in open court?
Will they use them during the actual trial to testify against Tyler?
Maybe.
Why would they not?
Because they'd have to do it again. They'd have to do it twice.
Do what twice? They haven't done it as of yet.
Yeah. The question is, why didn't they do it at the preliminary hearing? I gave you
my
answer.
Well, yeah, you've already answered that. I'm just asking now, moving forward, do you believe that they're going to use the parents in the trial?
If they have to. I think they'll probably try not to, but if they have to, they will.
Okay.
Because the evidentiary standard at trial is way, way higher The burden of proof is way higher. They might do it then.
Okay, so you've already answered the question specifically that you don't need to see certain things on footage because the other pieces of evidence is so overwhelming for you. Got it. I understand that part. I'm going to ask you a different question that's sort of similar, but a bit different. Does it not disturb you to any level that all of these cameras, all of these flock cameras, all of the campus footage, there's not a single clear photo or video image of Tyler Robinson? As an attorney, does that not concern you?
Well, I think the footage that you think isn't clear is clear. So we just disagree about that.
Which image?
The parking garage images that we've talked about like 5 or 6 times. But beyond that, I actually think they had a lot of footage. They had footage of him in the garage. They have footage of him in the stairwell. They have footage of him moving across campus. They have footage on the roof. They have footage going to the wooded area. They have footage they haven't shown us, and they told us they have it.
So it's
what I'm saying is they have a lot of footage, and there's been a lot of murder convictions where the guy was convicted and they had no footage at all. So I mean, like in terms of like as evidence goes, this is a lot of evidence. Sometimes you do it with no footage.
All I'm saying is that's fair, and I've conceded to that already on my channel. What I'm stating is, it is a bit concerning for me, and it's also very concerning for majority of the people that's following this that supported Charlie Kirk prior to September the 10th, which is going to probably make up the jury in this trial. That is to say, why are there no clear images of him? You're saying your definition of clear, it's not. You can't point to a single image that clearly shows that it's Tyler Robinson. What you're doing is you're taking other pieces of evidence and you're saying, I have good reason to believe it's him, which makes sense. But if that's what it is, let's own it. But when we look at the footage on the video, people lying, influencers lying like they saw some 4K footage stating that he took the shot from the Lowe's Center roof. Not true. Not true. And the biggest thing I want to say, I've already stated this earlier, that bothers me is that I heard what you said about the evidence. I heard what you said about what's been presented. Many of those pieces of evidence have been called into question. We won't agree on that. All right, fine. Why is it that other alternative theories, like the drone theory, why hasn't it even been entertained? Which is very, very compelling. I'm not talking about some conspiracy theories.
How do you know that it hasn't been?
Say it again.
How do you know that it hasn't been?
To our knowledge, it hasn't been.
Okay, but so you don't know it hasn't been?
Correct.
Okay. So like we don't have, like investigators don't release their investigatory files. We don't know what leads they followed up on, what leads they didn't.
Fair.
So
based on the pub.
So like, you know, what would you like? Somebody says it could be a drone, and then they say, how come no one's asked about this? Then you ask them, well, do you know that no one's asked about this? And they say, no, I don't know that. And you're like, well, okay. What do you want?
What you're doing. Very, very snarky response there.
No, what do you want?
Let me clarify.
Yeah.
When I say no one, I'm not talking about necessarily law enforcement, brother. I'm talking about based on, well, I guess I'm not talking about only law enforcement. Law enforcement by itself, yes, we don't know about their private investigation. Sure, we don't have access to their files. But based on the public statements that they've shared early on in the investigation, from our understanding, the suspects that they were entertaining, none of it was any of these other theories that have since been entertained. And I'm talking about other people that have done quote unquote public investigations since that point. Very few people have given credibility to the drone theory.
But you don't know whether law enforcement's investigated it, which is the thing that would matter, right? Because if law enforcement investigated it and they found out, shit, it was a drone, it wasn't that guy on the roof, that would be very compelling evidence. And by the way, legally, they would be obligated to give that evidence to the defense. So, you know, like it's a little, I mean, I don't know what people think on, you know, the broader public. I can't speak to all that, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if law enforcement's investigated, neither do you. That's done behind closed doors, but I'm not too worried about it.
So the best response we have in this moment is that we don't know what they've done. Not that we know and it's been ruled out. We just don't know.
Well, that's how investigations work. They don't tell you what they're doing for a lot of, I hope, pretty obvious reasons. But I guess my question to you, since I think we're starting to wrap up on time. I don't have a clock running, but
yeah, we got 7 minutes.
We got 7 minutes.
Yeah.
when I look at the evidence I laid out, the surveillance footage, all this, the DNA, the cartridges, the testimony, the confessions, the text, the Discord, the positive IDs, the witness testimony, the medical report, etc. You say you have questions about each piece, I guess.
Not all of them.
Okay.
Some of them I'm on the same side with you.
So how do you explain that all these pieces you have questions about were introduced in court the way they were? What do you think happened that explains why all these officers are wrong and the surveillance footage is fake and the texts are fake? Like what's the theory?
Well, hold up. You're not going to box me into a space that I haven't placed myself in. What I'm stating to you is, and it's been very clear what I've been saying to you, man, you're something in the corner of your screen. You're loving it. You're loving it.
Sorry,
what I'm stating to you is,
go ahead. Mike was
the images that have been presented, the video footage that has been presented, the text messages that, or the process by which they've extracted the text messages. Can somebody explain to me somewhere why it is that none of these things are clear? That's all I'm asking.
What's unclear about the text messages?
We've already discussed this. The extraction process. And earlier I mentioned the discrepancy specifically with the Discord messages. The Discord messages were sent.
Let's take on the text messages because that's what I asked you about. You think the text messages are fake?
I don't know.
You don't know.
We'd love to see the metadata for it.
Okay. So
but
based on the evidence presented, if you had to give a probability to them being real or fake, where would you put it?
The text messages?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. You couldn't put a probability on it?
And I'll give you an answer. When you say probability of them being real, the text messages, I believe, are real. I believe that the text messages are there.
Okay.
Who sent the text messages and what device it was sent from? I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. So you think that there might be some kind of conspiracy where somebody
I think you and I both believe that it's possible. I think you and I both believe that it's possible.
But possible is like the lowest bar. Like possible is like, if you ask me, is it logically possible that Mystique,
is it likely
that Mystique from the X-Men popped out the comic book, changed into Tyler Robinson and faked the whole thing? That's logically possible. The probability is like approaching zero. It's logically possible.
How?
Now, what I'm asking you is your sense of probabilities.
How is what you just said possible? How's it logically possible?
It's logically possible.
How? I heard it the first time.
There is a possible world where that could have happened.
No, but there isn't. All right, cool. Yeah. The Discord messages, there's a discrepancy when they were sent compared to when he was Mirandized. Do you have an answer for that?
The Discord messages when they were sent versus when he was Mirandized? Well, they have footage of him inside when he turned himself in and he still had his phone at that time. And that lines up with the timing of the messages. The Mirandizing, as I understand it, the dispute there is about one timestamp in one piece of court record. And it could be that there was just an error on the timestamp. There's a number of possible explanations. I'm not sure.
Well, I agree that it could be, right? But we were just talking about what's possible.
Yeah.
And you just explained to me the problem with that.
Well, but again,
that argument. The point that I'm making is the timing that they're claiming that this supposedly took place, these messages were sent. They said that when they arrested him, they took his phone from him. So how were Discord messages later sent? Like hours later. We're not talking about when he first came to the police station. Hours later, these Discord messages went out.
Yeah. And
I think it was like a 3 or 4 hour difference.
And the odds are very good that that's just simply not what happened. And the reason I think that is because the whole confusion about the timestamp comes from, I believe, a defense filing, a defense filing where there was the timestamp 625 was introduced into the record. So the defense certainly knows about this potential argument because it was their document that had that timestamp. And yet, during the preliminary hearing, when Exhibit 16.3, the Discord messages, were introduced into evidence, the defense didn't stand up and go, oh my God, those must be fake. He didn't even have his phone at that time. So this is kind of what I was getting at earlier. Like the defense knows what you're talking about. They chose not to make the argument, and they chose, and the reason they choose not to, it's kind of like, the steakhouse argument. One of the reasons that they know not to make bad arguments is that they can talk to their client and say, hey man, were you at the steakhouse? And he's like, nah. Hey man, you send those Discord messages? And he's like, yep. So like they're just not going to chase after bad arguments because they have information we don't have. So they know about this. I just think that the fact that they didn't pursue it is a very strong indicator that it's not a real problem.
Okay.
All right, we got 1 minute and 40 seconds. Probably time for one more question if y'all want to.
Well, I mean, I know we're going to go to closings in a second, but I mean, look, I hope, and I tried not to be like monster aggressive in this conversation, because I hope this was helpful in that I think a lot of the misconceptions that come about this come from the fact that the law works in ways that people are unfamiliar with. So I don't know. I appreciate you coming in good faith, and I hope that this was a useful conversation for you.
It was a useful conversation, but like, here's my biggest question for you. I'm curious to know your thoughts before we get into closing statements. What do you think, Ryan, is the biggest reason outside of what you just stated, if there is a separate reason? Why do you think that most people do not believe the official narrative, including Andrew Wilson?
What do you mean that Andrew Wilson doesn't believe the official narrative?
Andrew Wilson hasn't believed the official narrative, just like we don't.
He said it was 75% to 85% likely that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk.
I can show you a video of that states otherwise. He has the same questions that we have.
From when?
Over the past couple of months or so.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason that Andrew says 75 to 85 with Candace is that me and Andrew sat together and watched the whole preliminary hearing. And
he watched it with you, but he didn't even know a single charge.
He's not a lawyer.
That you don't have to be a lawyer to know a charge. You're watching the preliminary hearing. Those are the basics. If you believe he's 75, 85% guilty of something, guilty of what charge? Right?
Well,
you got to know what
first point is what Andrew Wilson believes, remembers, doesn't remember, irrelevant to this debate. But because Andrew's a friend and somebody that I work with, he's not an attorney. And the truth about the charges is, and look, I'll give Candace her due. That was a good clip. Good on her. That's a good clip for her. But the charges for what Andrew cares about watching the hearing matter almost not at all. Andrew was watching the hearing for the same reason that anybody else was watching the hearing. Is this the guy that killed Charlie? And whether it's like aggravated versus capital murder, or whether or not there's like an obstruction of justice or destruction of evidence charge, nobody cares if this dude destroyed evidence. It's legally relevant. But in terms of what we care about, did he kill Charlie? That's what we care about. And that's what people were watching it for. And I think for those of us who watched the hearing, the evidence that this guy did kill Charlie Kirk came in overwhelmingly. I don't know if we're past time, but
we are. But I was just wanting to let you guys finish that. All right. So since Ryan, you opened, we'll let Didi have the last word. So if you want to do a 2 to 5 minute closing statement, and then Didi, you'll get a 2 to 5 minute as well. Then we'll take a very short break for restrooms, coffee, whatever you want, and we'll get into the super chat questions. So guys, we got a lot right now. So just to let you know, I'm going to start at the bigger ones. So if you guys send like $2 ones, don't expect them to get read right away. All right, we'll start your time when you start talking, Ryan.
Don't I go last because I'm affirmative?
Oh, typically I think it's the person who opens, the other person gets the last word, so that it's kind of more balanced. But I'm open for whatever you guys want.
I'm fine to go this direction. Didi, if you have a preference, that's fine too.
Well, to be fair, I believe you spoke first and I spoke second.
Yeah. So you want to speak last, Didi?
Yeah. Well, no. What I'm saying is, I think we'd be going in the same order because you spoke first.
I'm not worried about the order. That's fine.
Okay. That's
not a big deal.
Okay. So I think if people reflect back to what I said in my opening statement, what I said is that there is overwhelming evidence that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. And how do I know that? It's because the evidence presented in court is both compelling and self-corroborating. What does self-corroborating mean? It means that each detail corroborates the other details. It's not just that Tyler Robinson confessed multiple times. It's that when he confessed details that line up with the physical evidence. He said that he used his grandfather's rifle and that he went back to the woods to go get it. And then we see his car coming back to the woods, presumably to go get the rifle. He said in his confession that his confession to a text message, if I see the phrase notices bulge, ooh, woo on Fox News, I'm going to lose my mind. But then one of the bullets has the phrase notices bulge, ooh, woo carved into it. His DNA is on this weapon. His father recognized the gun as a family gun. The towel has his DNA, major contributor, like 95% or so, and also Lance Twiggs's DNA on it, which is unsurprising given that they were lovers who shared the house, and it appears to be a bathroom towel. The Dremel that carved the bullets, Lance Twiggs testified he lent to Tyler Robinson when Tyler Robinson asked him that he needed a bullet. He wanted to carve bullets for a quote unquote hunting trip. You have confessions, you have testimony, you have physical evidence, you have video surveillance. And while the video surveillance might not have been clear enough for Didi, and everybody's entitled to their own opinion, it was clear enough for the testifying officer to identify him. It was clear enough for Lance Twiggs to identify him. Apparently, it was clear enough for his family and his Discord community to identify him. And if that wasn't enough, he admitted it was him. He said, hey guys, it was me on the surveillance footage on Discord. The point here is, it couldn't be that just one piece of this evidence was faked. Because if you faked one piece, you would have a very hard time explaining why that one piece is corroborating all the other pieces. So the one theory, the theory that I find overwhelmingly likely to be true, is that this evidence points at Tyler Robinson convincingly, conclusively, and in a self-mutually supporting way because Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. The alternative is some kind of broad conspiracy where the texts are faked and the videos faked and the officers are lying and the footage is fake and the rifle was planted, and the probability of all those things being true is vanishingly slim. And, to quote my buddy Andrew, there's just no evidence for it. So ultimately, when you decide, is there overwhelming evidence that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk, you have a choice between the logical conclusion of the evidence presented in court under penalty of perjury that is self-reinforcing, or people who are just asking questions. That doesn't seem like a hard call to me. Anyway, I'm Ryan Mullally. If you like this content, you can find me at Natural Law with Ryan C. Mullally on YouTube, Ryan C. Mullally on X, and tomorrow night when I'm doing a political debate on Modern Day Debate. So don't miss that one. Totally different topic.
All right. Did that with a minute left. Appreciate that. All right, Didi, we're going to turn it over, starting the clock back at 5 if you want to use all 5. You don't have to. And whenever you start talking, we'll go.
Sure, absolutely. Once again, I appreciate you all for giving me the time to be here today to discuss this with an attorney. Different experience for sure. What I will say is that I disagree from my perspective that there's overwhelming evidence that Tyler Robinson actually pow Charlie Kirk from the rooftop of the Losey Center. I think there are some compelling pieces of evidence that are undeniable. I believe that much of it have been called into question. There's a reason why so many of us do not trust what has been given to us. And we haven't even talked about the behaviors, because what I've noticed is that if you don't have 100% proof about the reason why somebody did something, then you shouldn't even mention it altogether. The thing is, I believe that there's overwhelming evidence that a cover-up is taking place, is because if the narrative is that Tyler Robinson took out Charlie Kirk from the rooftop of the Losey Center, then all the things that his team was doing that day, all the weird behaviors from the people that were around him that day, all the irregularities that have not been explained to this day, the fact that his team, that being TPUSA, won't even have an open dialogue, these things don't make sense if what actually happened that day was that Tyler Robinson took him out. I've not been given an adequate explanation or a satisfactory explanation as to why Joe Kent was denied from actually investigating potential foreign ties, even though he had leads. That being TPUSA, that's very strange to me, right? And typically what you'll hear people say is that, yeah, that's all you have, is that you can call something strange or weird. It's about feels and vibes. No, it's not, right? If somebody is unalived and then the people closest to them is behaving strangely, not cooperating, That is at the very least good reason to look into that person. But it seems that, but to Ryan's point, we don't know what the investigators have been doing behind the scenes. But as far as the public is concerned, it does not appear that anybody else has been seriously considered, or any other theory has been seriously considered, once again, based on the limited information that we do have. All right. So when we're speaking about evidence, but you cannot point to a single photo, a single video footage that clearly, even the police station footage doesn't clearly show Tyler. Yes, I admit it's not hard for me to admit, because I come in good faith, that some of these images do look like the build of Tyler. When you say he had a rifle stuffed down his pants, we can see the footage. We don't see a bulge in his pants outside of his phone. Where's the rifle? When he get onto the roof, he's up there apparently for 32 minutes. How come we don't have footage of him actually taking the shot? Where is it? Why isn't it clear that it's Tyler Robinson on the roof? How come when he jumped off the roof, we slowed the footage down, the same footage that we've all seen on the internet, that could potentially be doctored? What looks to be like some sort of bag or some sort of towel, whatever this dark colored fabric item he had in his hand, literally bends and curls. That's not a rifle. So where's the rifle? That's what we're asking. All right. So with that, I did concede many times in this interview, or in this conversation. Ryan made some great points. And I do appreciate him sharing it, but I'm still not convinced that he actually shot Charlie Kirk. Right. Once we get the metadata for the text messages, maybe I'll be a little bit more convinced. But it's still so many other questions surrounding this case that have not been answered. They tell you that anomalies happen in these cases, and this is not uncommon. Paving over the crime scene, telling the person who paved over the crime scene to find a group of men who can keep their mouths shut. What does that mean? Why are you doing these things? Why are people allowed to contaminate the crime scene? What's that about? Why don't we have footage of the camera right there in front of Charlie Kirk? That would help a lot. Where's the microphone? That would help a lot. It's not that we're conspiracy theorists. If you're convinced that, if I see that evidence, I'm on the side with you. And so with that, I'll yield my time.
All right. Thank you both for showing up. The Teddy Roosevelt quote about the man in the arena. So anyone who's willing to step in it, they deserve some respect for that on any side, because it's real easy to not show up to argue your beliefs or what you want to stand for on this. So guys, like the video, we're going to take a short break and allow these guys to use the restroom before we get into the super chats or get some coffee, water, whatever they need to do. So we will be back in about 5 minutes. I will set this over onto the intro screen here and play a quick DebateCon ad. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Mitty, I chose not to several times in this conversation just for the sake of avoiding arguments. So what your position is that if you see something that's been quote unquote debunked on the internet, you don't care for it, you don't consider it, you just you only consider what's been shared in the preliminary hearing, not additional testimonies. None of it is considered credible to you because the trial hasn't started.
It's not that I don't consider it at all. It's that I assign things, like, not that I give it like a number, but like you could imagine I give it like a credibility score. Like if I hear something, I'm like, oh, somebody testified in court, this is true. Well, I'm going to give that a higher credibility score, because if they're lying, they could go to jail, that sort of thing. If I read something on X, it has a pretty low credibility score, unless I have to check it out more, because there's just too much fake stuff on X, and I know there's fake stuff on X, right? So that's all I'm really saying. And like I grade things on a curve based off of the quality of the source, and that it helps me keep my my world orderly, because I don't know. I think we've all been faked out on X once or twice, where you see something, you're like, holy shit, and then you realize it's just not right.
So just to make sure we're on the same page here, you don't find several things about this case as suspicious and unusual?
No.
Andrew Wilson, and I mentioned Andrew not as a gotcha or anything. I know that you two are two separate people, but the reason why I did is because you were one of the fact checkers that were present with him. So I just assumed like maybe you have like some discrepancies here and there on what you believe, but for the most part, you probably believe or see this the same way. Yeah, there are things that have been unanswered. There are things that don't make sense, but you just happen to believe that based on what's been presented, the most likely answer is that Tyler Robinson did this.
Well, the difference is between me and Andrew is that, Andrew's a social media personality and I'm a lawyer who does social media. So, when you ask me like, oh, what do you think about this hearing? This is so much evidence. like in so many cases, there's so much less evidence. There was a guy who got convicted of murder once. They didn't have a witness. They didn't have a video. They didn't have a body. They didn't have nothing. But here they convicted him because they found a lot of blood under the floorboards of his house that matched his wife's DNA.
All right.
And he rented a wood chipper and it had a lot of blood in it. Right. Mm-hmm. They got a conviction off of that. And so when I look at like the amount of evidence we have here, it's so much more. Oh, sorry, Mike. I didn't mean to mess up your show.
No, you're good. You're good.
Are we live? Are we live on your end?
No. About to be in 5. All right, guys. I hope you got your tickets to DebateCon 9 while we were waiting. We are going to do the super chats now. We got quite a bit to go over. So, like I said, gentlemen, let's give a little more time to the bigger ones.
Let's buckle in.
We'll shoot through some of the smaller ones, still giving great answers. So, all right. First up, we got. I'm gonna read DPG things again because it was 50. He said, "Good to see you, Mike." Jungle F says, "W Mike, W Ryan, L Candy Sloppist." Appreciate your 50. Next up, we got a quick read from the Final Word membership. Matt Dillmonkey. Valhalla STD shooting, a steel plate in a cow's neck doesn't negate the medical literature, and that a 30-06 can fragment and be retained in a body or the medical report. Green Beret does not equal forensic expert. Yeah,
there's been a lot of discussion about the 30-06, and this was something I thought was helpfully cleared up at the preliminary hearing because a lot of people, and I'm not like a gun expert, but a lot of people said that a 30-06 full metal jacket would go through and through almost certainly. But then when we saw the bullets, they were 30-06 soft points. And 30-06 soft points fragment. They're designed to fragment and deform when they hit a target. And then the other thing that came out recently was that the medical examiner, we hadn't seen her report, but the prosecution summarized and quoted her report in a recent filing, which confirmed that the bullets not only hit the bullet hit Charlie's spine, but it fragmented when it did it, which is exactly what would happen to a 30-06 soft point were it to get stopped by the bone and not go through and through. So helpfully, as the evidence came in, that particular issue was clarified.
But why? Just real fast, I'm just curious about that because I'm no gun expert myself. Mm-hmm. But there are so many people who knew about this very thing that we just stated. They knew it was a soft point, and they still hold the position that what we saw take place with Charlie Kirk would not have taken place the way that we saw it. So that's what makes a lot of us so confused about what's happening with this case.
They're confusing probability and possibility, right? Like based on the literature that I've seen, and it sounds like there being an exit wound is the more likely thing to happen. Like let's say that there's an exit wound 2/3 of the time, or 60% of the time, or something like this. But that still means that 1/3 of the time, or 40% of the time, there is no exit wound. So the way I explain it is it's like, if you roll a die and you get a 6, how you can't be that shocked that you got a 6 when you rolled the die, right? Like, is it the most likely outcome? No, but it's still within the realm of possibility and probability for a one-time occurrence. So that's kind of how I view that.
I was going to say, Matt Dillmonkey sent a follow-up $10 super chat. It said, normal forensic evidence limits doesn't throw out the evidences. Mixed sample alone can cause degradation and stronger presence of older DNA without wiping or gloves.
Yeah, we didn't get into degradation today, but one of the points of confusion.
There are so many things we didn't get to.
Yeah, but degradation is, and Candace, by the way, admitted this in the debate. So I think
that's
hopefully
nothing to do with time.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with time. So when people say like the degradation shows that he didn't touch it last, that's just not right.
But that's not what's in question, just real fast. And I know we didn't get into it, but the biggest question is just that it's not about how long it was on the gun. It's about how much of it was on the gun. But that's another discussion, because I understand that there are possible explanations for that as well. So we can discuss that another time.
Yeah, we didn't get into the DNA, so that'd be like a whole other segment of the debate.
He sent last $10 here. He might have sent more, but I'm not sure. This is just kind of in order. This one says, Didi, do you think that imperfect surveillance videos aren't verified by witnesses and forensics in millions of murder cases? Go blast a gas station clerk and say, that video blurry. See how that works.
Well, yes, that's a very good point. But just so we're not missing the point that I'm making overall is a lot of us are finding it very strange that there isn't one clear one. Like, just give us a clear one. All these different images. It's not like we talk about one photo. I get it. I'll take it. I'll accept it. But there are so many of these, and they tell you, nope, believe that that's him based on these other pieces. And so many people are struggling to do that, partially because, again, they're not in a court of law for a living. So they don't know what to compare it to.
Okay. We do have 10 coming in from Pix Paradox and Big Mike putting in the good work this week. Thank you. Next up, we got 20 from Morehead64. Didi, how do you think crimes were solved before body cams or CCTV footage was available? Do you think each piece of evidence by itself has to be 100% proof to convict, or it isn't usable? Can you explain the evidence standard?
Well, what I can say to you is just because they did something before in the past doesn't mean that they always got the right person.
Yeah. So
Right.
I think that what happens is that people mistakenly argue that if one piece of evidence isn't the smoking gun, that there can be no evidence. And I'm not, by the way, claiming, Didi, that you were doing this as like a tactic or anything. But what people tend to do is that they want to hyperfixate on a potential challenge to one piece of evidence that I'd call a low probability challenge, and not look at the bigger picture. And, for example, like if the text messages were faked, then you'd also have to believe the rifle was planted because the text message referenced the rifle. And then you'd also have to believe that they faked the car coming back because the car coming back was referenced in the text messages. So again, the reason I was focusing on the bigger picture and the corroboration of the evidence is I think that goes to show how clear this actually is and the level of unlikely, improbable, and unproven conspiracy that would be required for the alternative hypothesis.
But why are so many people convinced? Like that's the part that's still, I'm not really hearing that part being answered, because if it was as cut and dry as you're stating, Ryan, so many more people would be convinced. Why aren't they?
Well, because it's the same reason why if you go, like, I don't know if you're old enough to have seen this, but like if you go to like a grocery store and you're like, man, why are more people buying the National Enquirer than buying like the New York Times? The answer is National Enquirer is more fun.
If you can do a quick response and then I'll move on if you want.
Yeah. So just real fast, and this will be quick. So people know that Candace Owens is lying, or they believe that she's most likely lying, but they're going to continue to tune into her and other people who take her position because it's entertaining.
I don't know if they know that she's lying. I think that she's wildly entertaining, and they enjoy it.
Okay.
They enjoy the conspiracy. I don't know. What
I disagree with that, but I do understand where you're coming from with that.
Conspiracies are fun.
Okay. Next up, we got 20 coming in from Lieutenant TSO. He said, Didi, the phone call describing a person with a black sweatshirt and long hair was proven to be AI. This is why we can't take y'all seriously.
No, it's not. I looked it up. It's been confirmed as a real story.
I don't even know what we're talking about in this case.
I think they're talking about the construction work.
Yeah, but there's been a lot of stuff like, like people talked about like the steakhouse receipt, and I always had problems with that. And then the owner of the steakhouse came out and said that he has no evidence that Tyler Robinson was there. So it's like, like there's the problem with all these internet stories is that, like they pop up, they get disproven, and then, just kind of like they fade back into the distance, and, people aren't really held to account for them necessarily.
I see. And I agree that happens, that takes place, but I have to look into that. If you notice, I didn't mention this, we didn't get to the steakhouse story, but I did read an article right before we got on that talks about this quote from this supposed restaurant owner that actually confirmed that he feels like he saw Tyler Robinson.
Well,
but
on July 18th, the Cowboy Smokehouse Steakhouse issued an official statement that says, based on the information currently available to us, we have no evidence establishing whether Tyler Robinson was at our restaurant around September 10th, 2025. We've responded truthfully to those who have questioned us based on the information available to us at the time. We have fully cooperated and will continue to cooperate with the authorities conducting this investigation. Because this is an active matter, we cannot and will not comment further.
Thank you. Very strange that the employee was actually interviewed and said this on camera. But I guess we can't trust it either because it's on the internet. Like, how do we reconcile that?
Well, it's pretty easy to reconcile. They have a receipt. We have never seen the full credit card number or the name on the receipt. But if the owner of the restaurant wanted to figure out whose receipt that was, it'd be very easy for him to do it because he's the merchant. He ran the credit card. So when he says we have no evidence, he's perfectly positioned to find out whose credit card that was, but he has no evidence because he has no evidence. If that was Tyler Robinson's receipt, he'd have evidence.
All right. Next up, we got 20 coming in from Andrew Thrasher. He says, good evening, MDD. Former senior airman Andrew Thrasher, just another leftist lunatic, LL, trying to convince us that another LL didn't take CK from us. You LLs won't win. Stop destroying our country from within. In 1SB.
Not one step back, brother.
Thank you, Andrew
What?
Thrasher.
Somebody translate that to me. What did he call me a leftist?
That was the implication there.
I'm not a leftist. Nothing about me is progressive. Like, just saying things. What makes me a leftist?
No,
Andrew Thrasher, let us know.
The argument, I think, I don't want to speak for Andrew Thrasher, but the argument is that the effect of this public dispute over Tyler Robinson has been very beneficial to the political left. And if you go and you watch,
He called me a leftist.
Yeah. In that you are doing something that is actively helping the left. I think that's his argument. I don't
How does it help the left?
Because tearing down TPUSA and sowing dissension amongst the right helps the left, which is why if you look at people like Z Sanchez and other the people on like the Unfuck America tour, they're constantly high-fiving people like Baron Coleman because they love the fact that this is happening. It's it's very good for them politically.
Incredible. Just we simply make observations that are absolutely spot on. We're told because of this silly false political dichotomy we're given called the left and the right, which both sides are corrupt. We're told don't actually believe your eyes. Don't pay attention to behaviors. Don't question them if you actually agree with them or you're identifying with the same political party. It's buffoonery. I don't like the tribalism. I'm going to call out things that don't make sense. I'm going to call out corruption regardless of what side it's on.
Yeah, and
I don't care what you say. You can call me a leftist. Nothing about me.
Well, I didn't, but I'm not.
But not you. Not you.
I'm not. I'm not trying to ascribe motivations to you. What I'm saying is like
the result of what I'm doing.
If you like,
just so happens to benefit them.
You
I get what you're saying.
At like Candace and Barron, and then you were like, if I were a leftist and I was designing a psyop, how would it be different? And the answer is it wouldn't be different at all. It'd be exactly like this. That's the point he's making.
Fair enough. Last question, and I'll let you go. Let's say in some imaginary world, same scenario, except there was a cover-up that was eventually proved. Should we actually call that out for what it is, even though it's going to help the left, or should we pretend that it didn't happen?
Yeah, I think that the issue that people have, because I think, everybody thinks, if you can prove that a cover-up happened, sure. I think the issue people have is that, and again, I don't want to cast aspersions at you, so I'm just going to say this in general about the people I've spoken with about on this topic. They seem immune to the evidence, meaning that no matter how much evidence is presented, they still feel like, well, I got questions. But then you tell them something like, did you know there was a drone there? They're like, holy shit, a drone. Oh my God. Right. So like, they're like incredibly skeptical when there's like a mountain of court evidence. And then when someone's like, hey, did you know that there was a phone from Israel on campus? They're like, fuck, Israel did it. And that rubs people the wrong way. It makes people think that they're not following evidence. They have a little bit of they're kind of enjoying the conspiracy a little too
That's
much.
funny. And I actually agree with you, Ryan, but I also want to state that actually works both ways for the record.
I'll let you explain that if you'd like, or we can move on.
Sure, sure. Well, and what I mean by that is I've noticed that as well, and it's what is it? Confirmation bias. You already have something that you're thinking may be the potential theory, and if you hear about some other potential evidence or some evidence that may not even exist, you're more inclined to believe it because. But I see that from the other side as well. If you present something that, like, so for example, we're talking about the drone theory again. Chris Martinson, I'm assuming you've already heard his entire theory and presentation.
A little bit. I don't think I'm deeply familiar with it.
It's an incredible theory. Not saying that it happened, but it's very, very compelling. And what you'll find is people aren't even willing, who already take your position, aren't even willing to entertain it because it doesn't help confirm what they already believe happened.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about what happens when you watch all the evidence come in, like in terms of like Bayesian logic, right? Like when I started watching the hearing, I had a pretty weak idea that maybe Tyler Robinson did this based on what I had read, but I hadn't seen the evidence and I wasn't like 100% into the weeds. As I watched the evidence come in, my belief that Tyler Robinson committed this crime ratcheted up and up and up and up and up the more they showed the evidence. They showed the text message. When they put the note on screen and the goodbye note he wrote to his lover, and he said, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and I took it." Right? When they put up this on screen, this joke he made where like this dark, evil joke where he's like, "I guess granddaddy's rifle worked." Ha 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 ha. Right? Like your percentages of certainty increase. And as that increases, the less likely you are to when someone's like, "Well, there was a cell phone." I'm like, "Yeah, big shit. There was a cell phone." You know, like
right.
Because I'm comparing it to all this other evidence I've seen.
Fair, but what's very interesting is that what people find very confusing about the text messages was the language he was speaking. One point he was speaking like he was from the early 1800s. And then he even said at one point in time that he wants to take this to his grave.
Mm-hmm.
But then he's also going to later explain everything in great detail, like every granular detail that needs to be said so it can make it absolutely clear that it was him that did it. And there's no question that anybody else, there's no question that he did it, and it alleviates everybody else. That's what people look at as suspicious. Hard to believe that a person would do that. Yes, that's not evidence that it's fake.
Yeah.
But the point is, that's what increases skepticism. Anybody that pretends that doesn't lead to skepticism, I don't think has been objective.
Well, I guess what I mean is when you see somebody with all this evidence, right? And then at the end of the evidence chain, they have a confession where they just said, "I did it." This isn't like a case where it's tough to figure these things out, right? Like the evidence is overwhelming. There's so much of it. And then he just says, "I did it." He just confesses a bunch of times. And, when you're looking at different court cases, there's a lot of cases where the murderer never confesses, right? Like a confession's a big piece of evidence, having his rifle on the scene's a big piece of evidence, having all the details confirmed, that's a big piece of evidence. And then you're like, well, maybe he wrote it in a weird way. I'm like, well, I don't know, maybe.
All right, we're going to move on here, Ryan.
Mm-hmm. Oh, go ahead.
Yep. Alan Zaitlin Music sent 20. He says, "Didi, with no evidence, you did a stream claiming Charlie Kirk is alive. Would you be willing to take a lie detector test as to whether you think he is alive?"
I would take a lie detector test, and I don't have to. I've never in life stated that Charlie Kirk is alive. I've entertained the theory and how compelling it is behind the theory that Charlie Kirk is alive. Don't lie about something that I've said.
All right.
But that was the title of the stream, though? I didn't see it. That was the title of the stream?
No. The title of the stream is like entertaining the Charlie Kirk is alive theory.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I didn't see it, so I have nothing to say about it.
Appreciate you.
Which I'll have a conversation about that as well. I don't know. The person said it as if it was a gotcha. Sorry.
Yeah. Is he going to actually administer the lie detecting test? Not everyone's got one of those laying around.
Hey. Look, I'm not telling Didi how to do his content, but if you guys donate, get Didi a lie detector, that sounds like a winning video to me. Like, I think that video does numbers. So,
Could be a good stream week if you every day you detected somebody.
I'll say this just
Different
real
guess?
fast. It'll be very just watch the video. It's an interesting video.
All right, up next we got some $10 super chats. We'll go through these. We got Rachel Wilson for 10. The different exhaust pipe claim has also already been debunked. You keep citing things that people have already disproven, which is why no one takes you seriously, DD.
Rachel is a very she has a very nasty mouth, like Andrew. So I'm not even gonna engage. All I'll say is it hasn't been debunked. The person that tried to debunk it has someone to debunk them.
Yeah, I mean, I think we went over this, but I'll just say the same thing I've been saying, which is, if there were compelling evidence that the prosecution was lying and these things were faked, I have certainty that the defense team would have done something with that information, and they did not. Now, from that, you could draw a number of conclusions, but the most likely one is it wasn't faked, and the law enforcement officers weren't lying.
Rachel, and I just want to say just real fast, based on your logic, can you explain why people don't take you serious? If Candace is, because this is the person that is typically brought up, and I am critical of Candace myself, and I've been very critical and open about that several times. Candace Owens has never spoken about me or supported my platform, so I don't know why I'm always tied to Candace Owens. But I will say this: if that's the case, and you say that this is why nobody takes me serious, why is so many people taking Candace Owens seriously? Exactly, you have no answer for that.
I'll look for her comment if she responds.
Yeah.
Alan Zaitlin Music sent another 10. Thank you, Alan. He said, can Didi say where he researched the Karen Reed case? What he said was false. The Cellbrite dispute was about the time of a Google search, not a claim that a text message wasn't real.
That's not, what? I stated that, to answer your first question, I looked it up. I looked up the actual court case on Google, and I read through the details of it pertaining to the Cellbrite extraction evidence. And it talks about a 2:27 a.m. It talks about a Google search, and it talks about a text message. So there are two separate things that took place in that trial, from my understanding.
When you say you looked it up on Google, were you looking at like a news story?
The document. I read through the actual.
You looked at the court document?
Yeah, I looked at parts of it. Yeah.
Okay. It was an opinion, an order. Like, what was it? I haven't seen it, so I don't know what to look for.
What are you asking me?
Like, what kind of court document was it?
Like, I don't know how to answer this. Like, it was like a transcript.
It was a transcript.
A transcript of the, yeah.
Okay, chat. I didn't say I would wait for Rachel's response and not move on. I said I'll look for it. So I wasn't going to just sit here and wait and hope she was still watching. But if she does, tag me. Here we go. Next up, we got Toasted Butter Games for 10. Isn't it weird, Ryan, that almost all people who murder don't show on camera in 4K taking the shot or showing their face? I mean, who would wear a face covering when they commit crimes? These cowards. W. Ryan.
Yeah, it filled me with deep concern that he wore sunglasses and avoided looking at the cameras. Yeah, I mean, I think this is part of how it goes. Like, if we only convicted people when we had the perfect smoking gun evidence, we would never convict anybody. But that's simply not how murder trials are run.
Am I in the lion's den? I mean, all these comments are the same.
I think there's
I'm
just
I'm in the lion's den.
There might be a disproportionate number of the larger chats that are aimed at you, but at the same time, we do have sometimes very filled audiences for one side. I can't do anything about that.
No,
did you tell your audience to come over and get in the chat?
I mentioned it towards the end, right before I ended the live. Yeah, but it's no complaints. I was just joking. I don't mind it at all.
Well, this could make you look good if you have good answers. So
yeah,
I would take it that way. Here we go. We got David Moore for $10. So many people equal appeal to numbers. I don't know who that's referencing exactly.
I think that's an argument. I think that's in reference to this phrase, like, if a lot of people believe a thing, then
I meant
it should be true.
Either of you. I don't know who made the claim that a lot of people believe X or Y.
I think that was in reference to Didi, you saying that, like, why is Candace so popular if she's like so wrong?
Well, no, it's not that statement in particular. but it's sort of similar to that. It's just the question that I asked you about why it is, and to be clear, my statement, I didn't make a definitive statement that because so many people believe something that makes it true. The point is, I'm curious. Ryan has sort of this, he's heavily convinced of his worldview. So I'm curious from an attorney's perspective, why do you believe that so many people are not buying it if it's so cut and dry, if it's so straightforward, you know?
Yeah. And I guess one of the other things about being on an attorney's view is that when I read people talking about the law online, they're wrong 95% of the time. Like most people are wrong about the law and how it works most of the time. It's endlessly frustrating. And I imagine that's not unique to law. I think scientists probably read the internet and social media and freak out because they're like, everyone's getting everything wrong. So I'm sure this is something that other professions have, but most people are wrong about the law most of the time. And then hopefully it comes down to, those of us attorneys who feel comfortable speaking publicly, trying to explain things and make the case as best we can.
All right, we'll move on here. We have another 10 coming from Matt Flynn. He says, everyone has preconceived notions about various things. And when people are presented with theories that affirm those notions, they get emotionally attached to those theories. And it's fun. W. Ryan in 1SB.
Now, one step back, brother.
All right. We do have some 20s coming in. I'll jump up to those real quick, and then we'll hit back on the 10s. Intel is wild for 20. Didi, during your debate with Warren, you used the word pansy, but Warren had to correct you and explain it was patsy. I'm sorry, but I just can't take you seriously.
Literally not true. Didn't happen.
Was that you? I don't think that was you.
I think that was Rob Noor was debating.
Yeah, let's be fair to Didi. I think that was Rob Noor and a totally different person.
I appreciate that, Ron, but I'm expecting this. I mean, this is the nature of these people that comment.
Now that said, go watch that clip of Rob Noor and the guy he was debating, because that was real funny. That's a great clip. But yeah, it was a different person.
Robinson's a flower. Okay. Dartho Moss for 20. Ryan, can you explain degraded DNA and how degradation only describes the condition of the DNA right now, and how it is not a clock for when it was left when compared to another DNA sample? I'd then like to hear Didi's response. We did kind of cover this a little bit, but if you guys
we did, and before I explain this, I do want to give Didi credit, because Didi did not take this position, and he actually took the opposite position and said he understood this issue. So I don't want to put words in Didi's mouth here, because Didi did not say this. There have been some people who have made the mistaken argument that because one DNA is more degraded, that you can tell that it's been there longer, that somebody touched it at a particular time. And that's simply not true. DNA degradation has a lot to do with the type of DNA that's left. For example, sweat might degrade faster than a blood stain, and it has to do with exposure to the elements, humidity, this sort of thing. So DNA that's on the outside of the gun might degrade faster than DNA that's like inside the gun, where it's not as exposed to the elements, rain, water, dust, this sort of thing. But to be clear, Didi did not argue that the degradation of the DNA was an indication of timing. And the experts don't think that either. I think this is a common misconception online, but it is a misconception. But I don't think Didi took that position.
Appreciate that, Ryan. We got Propa D for 10 saying, Q to Ryan. Do cover-ups happen today? Do you think Karen Reed case was a cover-up?
I don't know enough about the Karen Reed case to speak on it. I know Didi asked about it earlier, and I didn't really cover that one, so I'm not sure about it. I think cover-ups do happen, and I'm actually someone who's like I'm in favor of treating the government skeptically. Like, I think you should not blindly accept things that you're told, but there's a difference between being like a healthy level of skepticism and just saying, I take the contrary position. Like, if the government says X, I say opposite of X, right? Like, here, the evidence is real good. There's other cases, if the evidence is less good, that I would take a different position. It's not going to be, I'm not blindly pro-government, if that's what he's asking.
Well, he's just asking, do cover-ups happen? I don't know if it was necessarily all about the government.
They distinctly do and have.
When do you think they have? I'm just curious.
I'm not like a deep scholar.
Just give me one example.
Scholar on this sort of thing. Like, Hold on. I don't want to say something and be wrong. I feel like wasn't MK Ultra like pretty much established? I don't know if that was or not. Like I feel like that one
Yeah.
was pretty much done. I want to go. I haven't gone back and looked at like what was said about like Tuskegee originally, or like like testing by the military on black soldiers at different times. Like I feel like I'm not an expert on any of these things.
What are you defining as a cover up though? Like if you're saying something took place and they prevent people from figuring out what happened, I don't know if this is what this person is referring to as cover ups. What they mean is what many of us are alleging is taking place with this Charlie Kirk narrative, right?
Well,
so someone else did something. They're preventing us from figuring out who may have did X,
Yeah,
Y,
so-
and Z. So it's not
Political assassinations in particular is kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah,
DD,
right,
or-
right. Not just a cover up in itself, but a cover up and preventing you from figuring out the real culprit.
Yeah, I don't have like a strong view on any political assassinations. I could look into them, but I don't have a particularly strong view on that. That's not saying that I think that they weren't cover-ups or were. I just, like you can't be an expert in everything. And this is not something like that's not my area of coverage. So I don't really dive into that stuff. Like
I
unless
think
I'm
attorneys typically stay away from them from what I've seen, because just how your brain works, you're super logical. And
Mhm.
so it's hard for you. Typically, what I've experienced with attorneys, they are the ones who are probably not so much leaning into those things, and they're quicker to call them conspiracy theories.
Well, and also, like if you think about like how you spend your time, like, I got a busy law practice, I got a social media presence, I got 2 kids, I got a third on the way. Like I'm not investigating conspiracy theories unless I have a reason to. You know what I'm saying? Like not if you ask me about a Supreme Court case, I probably have an opinion because I was covering it.
Fair enough. All right, I got another 5 minutes. I have to go.
All right, well, then we'll shoot through the rest of these 10s and 20s. Normal America with Rob Noor sent 20. He said Miranda issue. Tyler wrote the Discord messages and then turned himself in on the 11th. He was then transferred to another precinct and arrested there on the 12th. Docs show he was Mirandized at 6:35, quote, and then it's all caps. The day of the arrest, the 12th.
Yeah, that's that. So there's a number of different ways that date could be explained. The one I referenced is like, it could just be a mistake.
Rob, let's
was
let
explaining.
DD respond to this one
Oh,
first
sorry.
before he has to go, just because I think he was more in contention with that.
And by the way, DD, I apologize. You said you had 5 minutes. I shouldn't have done that. My bad.
No, you're good, Ryan. So let me make sure I understand. So when did this person? I understand when he was supposedly arrested at 6:35. When are they saying that the Discord messages were sent? Did I miss that part?
He was saying that he was saying they were
didn't
sent on the
mention
10th, but the Mirandizing didn't occur till the 11th. So it's 6:25 the next day.
Rob said wrote them on the 11th and turned himself in on the 11th was the first sentence. And then the transferring to another precinct and being arrested there on the 12th is what he's saying the 6:35 day of the arrest was.
Okay,
Okay,
not what I have, but okay, I'll just try to fact check that at a later time.
Okay, we got one more 20 that just came in from J.W. Thorpe. Karen Reed did not establish Cellbrite was unreliable. The dispute was over one Safari timestamps interpretation. The evidence stayed admitted, the raw data remained, and the issue was interpretation, not faulty extraction.
Yeah, that's literally what I said. I literally stated that it doesn't prove that it's unreliable. It just takes sort of double verification by other processes to extract text messages. I talked about that with the artifacts.
All right, one last one from Andrew Thrasher, who was the follow-up to his one calling you a leftist. Former senior airman Andrew Thrasher again. I like how he always does that. This arrogant undercover leftist lunatic is the reason we need repeal universal suffrage. I don't want this ignorance to cancel out my vote in 1SB.
Why do I feel like he actually said it that way? I feel like he typed it while saying it that way too.
Andrew
Maybe
Thrasher,
talk to text.
the dono of the night. Well played, Andrew Thrasher. Not one
All right.
step back.
You said 5 minutes at 8 o'clock. It's 8:02. Let me just shoot through a couple of these. Shmuel Sperling sends 30 shekels. Thanks for all the shekels last night, Shmuel. Shmuel.
Wait, was it really a shekels?
Yeah, it's got the little swirly thing. I had to learn what that was because I kept getting so confused by the hieroglyphic
incredible.
there.
That's fucking that's well done.
Are y'all Zionists or something? Like what? Are y'all Zionists?
I am not, but I think Shmuel might be.
I think he figured out how to donate in shekels, which is really funny. But go
Either
ahead. What's
that
the
or he
dono?
actually is in Israel. I don't know.
Yeah.
He said all roads lead to Zion. If you a deranged idiot, to you it means that everything is blame Israel and the Jews. If you are a spiritual person, it means something else entirely. And then he's got some unfavorable comments on that one from the chat. All right, so we got those are our the 20s, and I think 30 shekels equates to like 15 or something. I'm not sure. All right, let's hit a couple more of these 10s before you got to go. Appreciate your time, Didi, and we'll let you shout your channel out before we let you go. Okay, so the next 10 that we have here is from ABC 12378. He says, if CK and EK were Democrats, the entire right would be questioning this narrative. But because EK and TP are on the right, we are supposed to believe everything. Makes no sense.
Yeah, I'm not making an argument based off of political alignment. I'm making an argument based off the evidence presented.
Ryan, you in particular, I actually believe that. I do believe that what this person commented does apply to many people in politics, which is part of my issue with politics.
Yeah,
I 100% agree.
No question there's tribalism, but the tribalism doesn't change the evidence.
All right, next 10 is from Kenny 3 Stacks, who says Ryan is bad faith. He thinks that the defense has to put all their cards on the table in a all caps preliminary hearing. That's not the point here or there. Utah allows hearsay, which isn't even admissible in court.
There's a bunch there. How big was this dono? Because I don't want to give you like a $100 answer.
It was 10.
It was 10? Okay. There's a bunch there. They are not required to put everything on the table, but there's certain types of things, like if they could prove that they were fake in text messages or pictures, that they would put on the table just as a matter of protecting their client. Not hearsay is allowed. Reliable hearsay is allowed per the Utah State Constitution, and not everything introduced was hearsay. For example, the confessions are not hearsay.
We'll let you respond, Didi, and then we'll shout your channel out. Tell people where to find you.
My fiance is not here just yet. She got held up. So I do have another 5 minutes if you all want to keep me.
Yeah, absolutely. We usually just try to see if we could finish all the chats. And I'll cut them off usually if it gets too late. I was up to like 1 last couple of days reading chats.
Yeah, congrats on the engagement, by the way.
It's fun.
Yeah, I'm like, that's a good thing, bro.
Yeah, that's
a good problem.
Congrats. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, if you want to respond to that one about the preliminary hearing hearsay thing.
What they? I'm sorry. Repeat it.
Yeah, right. It said he thinks that the defense, this in regards to Ryan, has to put all their cards on the table in a preliminary hearing. That's not the point there. Utah allows hearsay, which isn't even admissible in court.
This is so again. I'm not going to make this too long. When I presented my opening statement, I truly meant I was approaching this in good faith, and I'm reiterating that to say I'm speaking with an attorney. So I'm not going to come into a debate. I'm not going to come into a conversation and try to debate an attorney of any level. I don't care if he's been practicing law for just 2 or 3 years. That is to say, if he states something, I'm not going to sit here and talk about what I found on the internet or what I Googled as it pertains to the law or what I hear from another attorney. It's just not my realm. It's not what I do for a living. I have a respect for what they do. I'm going to have to just take Ryan's word in this. I'm going to have to share what I thought was the case, what I've heard from other attorneys. And then after the fact, I'll look this conversation over and I'll fact check the things that Ryan shared with me. But I'm not going to place myself into a position to have to try to debunk him because that's not my area of expertise. But what you said, I have heard that for sure.
All right, guys. I'm going to end the poll. So sorry if you didn't get a chance to vote. We usually just have a poll about more convincing arguments, testing the audience here. Nope, please don't full screen. All right, next question. Make the most of your time here. I think we did all the 10s, so appreciate that. And we'll go up here, hit some of these 5s real quick. Big League Drew for 5 says prediction. Neither side has evidence compelling beyond reasonable doubt.
This is something that people say all the time, and I think I'm ascribing good faith. So I'm going to ascribe good faith and just say it's a misunderstanding. Nobody who's taken this seriously is going to argue that the prosecution has established proof beyond a reasonable doubt at this phase. That's what trial's for. And at trial, they can't use hearsay, reliable hearsay in the same way. At trial, they would have to call in a bunch of witnesses. A bunch of stuff is going to happen at trial. So what we're talking about is that we saw evidence and we were convinced by it. But I don't think, I hope that nobody's out there saying that beyond a reasonable doubt has already been proven, because that's just not what preliminary hearings are for. It's just, I mean, so in good faith, I don't think that's the position one could take.
All right, Didi, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, what I've been hearing, the part of the reason people have been stating this is because we have your Andrew Wilson's of the world, Warren Smith. Maybe you're in the same category, Ryan, where people state that they're only 75 or 85% convinced. And that's not overwhelming. You can't put a man to death because of that. I've since looked into it, and again, I'm approaching this in good faith. I understand that two things can be true at the same time. You can be only 85% convinced, while believing that there's overwhelming evidence, but also stating that there is not evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, having faith that that may be presented in the court of law when the trial actually starts. I do understand that argument, and I also understand why people believe that if you're only 75% convinced. I think what they're doing is they're taking that percentage and they're stating, well, if the jury is only, or if the judge is only 75% convinced, you can't put a man to death. I understand where they're coming from, but two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that part of it is like a little bit of a semantic trick, because they'll say like, well, you can't put someone to death for overwhelming evidence. It has to be beyond a reasonable doubt. And I'll say, yeah, that's right. Because no one's trying to put him to death right now, right? Like, to go to trial, there just needs to be probable cause, which is a very low standard. You and me are talking about overwhelming, meaning like, am I convinced? Do I feel like it's very likely? And then like, can you put him to death is beyond a reasonable doubt. It's a different standard for each thing.
And it's a different conversation. But what I'll say is the only reason I had that response just now, the way that I did, outside of just me just being an honest person, is because, Ryan, I do believe that being that you're an attorney, you did delve with the case and knew the case a lot more than the average person. What you'll find with a lot of these people, a lot of them are just tribalists. They aren't even following the case very heavy themselves. They just like the person that's defending a certain position, is they don't actually know the case themselves, right? I'm not an attorney, but I truly care. I've been reading the charging documents. I watched the preliminary hearing. It's so much information that's taking place and being shared, which is why we weren't able to get to a plethora of different things today. But what I'll say is, my issue is when a person is not familiar with the majority of the case, but still will try to argue that they're convinced about X, Y, and Z taking place, is disingenuous to me.
No, but that goes both ways, right?
I agree.
Like there's definitely people who have no idea what they're talking about.
I agree.
Okay.
I'm gonna Big League sent another one. Big League Drew, thank you. Sent 5. He said, will the speakers please disclose if either was paid $300K for this appearance?
No, but Didi promised me $300K. So, a check's in the mail, I'm guessing.
No, that's funny. But I did ask a question earlier because people tend to want to know. I don't know. Are you a Zionist, Ryan?
I don't even know what you mean by that question.
Do you not know what Zionist means?
Well, people use it in a lot of different ways. Like, do I think the country of Israel has the right to exist? And if so, if that's what you're asking me, what does that have to do with our debate?
Okay.
Big League Drew sent another.
That answers the question.
Yeah.
He said, we've all seen the footage. It's filmed on a potato. You can barely see anything.
I'm not sure what filmed on a potato means, but that's funny.
Bobby 09584 says for 5, Didi has said he thinks Charlie is still alive with no evidence, but ignores Robinson's own confessions and DNA evidence and everything else. Lol. Kind of covered that one. It was a stream, he said, was just entertaining what people are saying about that, I believe is his position.
Again, I did a great job of explaining everything that I entertained in that video, and I stand on it. You should go and watch it. I never said that Charlie is alive. Watch the video.
Last one from Big League Drew that I see here. Thanks for their $20, Big League. He said, I didn't say whether it is or is not Tyler, but be honest, the footage sucks.
I think some of the footage is better than others. Like the stairway footage is pretty good. The footage on the roof, I think anybody who watched it would say like, yeah, that's hella zoomed out. That's real zoomed out footage. Now, I didn't have the privilege of seeing the zoomed in, like cleaned up version that they showed in court. So I can't speak to that. I know like Kai Schwemmer, I thought gave a very fair assessment of it when he came on my stream to talk on it, but I didn't see it, so I can't really speak to that.
All right. Another 5 here from Caleb AC Studio. He says, Ryan, could you explain further how the evidence is not just stacked, but it's corroborating, as in evidence is not considered in a vacuum?
Yeah, like one of the ways that you can tell that evidence is, you should credit it more, is that the evidence is consistent with the other pieces of evidence, right? So like, it's not just that they found the gun, but the gun has the cartridges and the cartridges have the carvings, and the carvings are referenced in the text messages, and the location of the gun is referenced in the text messages, and him coming back on campus is referenced in the text messages. So all this lines up, but then the DNA evidence corroborates that it's his gun. And apparently his father said it was his gun, and he mentioned it as a family gun. So these pieces of evidence, not only do they stand up on their own, in my estimation, but because they reference each other, they create a stronger whole than any piece would be individually. And it's very hard to explain how any one could be faked or altered without some kind of grand conspiracy, given the way that they interlock.
Didi, we just got one more 10 that I want to make sure we get to, since it's asking you directly. And this is kind of in, I think, tongue-in-cheek to you asking Ryan about the Zionist thing. He said, Didi, are you a member of the Black Panther Party or BLM movement?
I mean, do they really want the answer to that question? My question, Ryan,
you a Freemason?
No, I have never. No, I am not. Are you?
I mean, wouldn't you like to know? Wouldn't you like to know, Didi?
All right. So I noticed that you haven't answered either question. So for me, no, I'm not a member of Black Lives Matter. Don't care for the organization. Think it's corrupt as well. And the Black Panther Party, no, I am not.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff is not relevant to the topic.
Yeah, it could be.
I don't even.
Right.
I'm not even. I was going to ask how, and then I choked it back because I don't even think I want to know the answer to that question.
So this is from Gaben 6409 for 5. He says, I think at this point we might need to rescind the Afro Nancy Drews League's detective licenses. Please reapply in 1 year. Reapply in 1 year. Drews League's detective licenses.
I got time.
Please
I
reapply.
gotta go.
Okay. We got. I'm trying to find out. Let's find one that you might not be able to answer if you're not here, obviously. Okay. The Falcon 1542 for 5 says, Didi, how do you know Christ is king if you don't have 4K video he existed? Do we have evidence we could stack? Please answer in good faith.
Nice.
That is pretty funny.
Yeah, that's actually very funny because that gets into other things.
The reason it's funny though, it's a fair point. Like if we were talking about the evidence for Christ, we're going to be looking off of witness testimonies primarily, like the witness testimonies of people who saw that he was risen and what they said and what they wrote down, right? And we're going to be dealing with a lot less evidence than we have for this case.
All right, let me get one more, Didi, because I think you could definitely build on this one. I think it's probably more inherent to your or more in line with your point. Left-hand assassin for 5 says, institutional trust is at an all-time low. That's what's causing this. Our own moral degradation manifesting in real time. You agree with that?
I agree with this, and I'm glad you read this comment because I'd just like to take the moment here before I go and just say this part. Again, I took a conversation, which most people wouldn't take a conversation specifically with an attorney.
I appreciate that, by the way.
Unless they're an attorney. I'm sorry?
I appreciate that, by the way. I've had a very hard time getting people to take this debate.
Yeah, because I truly care about this case, right? And so for me, what I've learned interacting with people online, and not necessarily somebody that's decided to come on camera with me, is that when you're discussing this, the only thing that seems to matter is what has been presented by the feds or has been presented by the state. And anything else outside of that may have been discovered or observed, right, is considered conspiracy. It's considered loony and not really worth a discussion. And so, such as our reluctancy to trust government or three-letter agencies, right? To trust law enforcement, to trust these sort of bodies of work. And part of the reason I didn't mention that today is because it'll just take us down a completely different line. And then we'll start talking about, well, do we have reason not to trust them here? And what's your reason? And where's your evidence that they'll, and it's like, well, and then we go off into another thing. I wanted to, in good faith, actually talk about what's there. And if something is convincing to me, I'll entertain it.
Yeah. And I'm not one to say that I think in particular, COVID shook people's faith in institutions in a way that's going to take a long time to recover, and probably some like very serious changes. So I don't throw any shade at people who went through that experience and came out of it with like less trust than they had before. I think that makes sense to me. But again, in this particular case, there was this evidence that I could work off of, and I don't have to be particularly trusting. What I can look at is the fact that there was this evidence, and then I ask myself, if I was on the defense lawyer's team, what would I do in their position? And
Fair.
and they're there to represent Tyler to the best of their ability. And when I ask them that question, I'd say, well, as the defense team, I have access to all the evidence. I have access to Tyler. I'm not going to make an argument that's going to hurt him or hurt my credibility or get me disbarred. So I can use that to filter out bad arguments.
All right, Didi, I know you got to go. Just tell people where to find your channel, and we do appreciate your time.
Yeah. My name is Demetrius. I go by Didi. I am the host of the Didi Got a Podcast show. You can primarily find it on YouTube. Appreciate the time. I do believe that this was a good faith argument on both sides. Ryan could have approached this conversation in a more aggressive manner to sort of debunk every single theory or argument that's coming from every which angle. And he chose not to do that. And instead, he decided to have a dialogue with me, which is exactly what I wanted. And I appreciate the time from both of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry, you did shout your channel out specifically?
I did.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool. Just making sure. I just heard the name part, and then I got lost making sure I read these chats. Because we're going to keep going here, guys. We're going to try to get through the rest of these fives and a couple of the twos. So, Didi, thank you for joining us. And when you
appreciate you taking the time, Didi.
I'll swap over here.
I haven't been on Zoom in forever. I don't even know how to get off of here.